Hi everyone, welcome to Global Comics. My name is Kat. Am here today with Cody from IronVerse with Wicked Publishing. We're going to be talking about campaigns today. So a lot of comic and manga creators, we want to do these Kickstarters, and it can be really, really stressful organizing just one campaign, let alone a series that has multiple books in a campaign like over time, and that's really, really stressful. Cody here is super successful.
I do. We're on number 4 for our debut series, Jack Iron Steel Cowboy. It's on Indiegogo.
Okay.
I've done both. Had personally less success with Kickstarter, but it's different. It's different for different books. There's so much dice rolling in all of this. The number one thing is persistence. That hopefully I will be communicating pretty well throughout this whole thing. Just got to stick with it.
That was totally my mouse. That just rolled off. I'm so sorry. We cut that off. I'll probably be able to edit that out. So I know. So it's the fourth book, right? So how many total campaigns have you done, including other series other than IronVerse?
I'm going to include a series I consulted on the campaign as well, if that works. That would be 6.
Yeah. 6?
Dang. 6. Now, to qualify, you also said very successful. So different people judge success differently. I think we've done exceedingly well for a independent project coming out of nowhere with no established professionals or even connections really to the comics industry. Just the desire to do the work, right? So we are actually about, if I include the one that we consulted on, it's 3 out of 6 successful.
Well, I mean, successful could be, for a lot of people, I think just success would be defined as just completing the campaign with as much money as you need. Of course, when you do campaigns, there's always more than you think you're going to need. Like, for example, we did a Kickstarter when I was in art school, and we completely underestimated shipping costs, especially for overseas, outside the United States. And we ended up barely scraping by. We actually kind of had to chip in some of our own money just a little bit, but it was man, it was a razor thin margin for us. So I guess first we'll go ahead and talk about IronVerse because, well, that's what you're known for, right? So before we get too far in the Kickstarters, I kind of want to go over how you even started this series and how did you transition into getting ready for crowdfunding and all of that. So for IronVerse, what was the beginning of it like for you?
Before it was called IronVerse, it was really just a character and a world that I wanted to manifest somehow, because it was a way that I was, as a much younger man, dealing with the transition from childhood concepts, childhood ideas, and understanding of the world to the intrusion of the adult world and the strength of reality and trying to bear that. And so it's been a long time coming. Jack was just it really was a thought piece on understanding human history, understanding all of the weight behind it, and putting it in a place where this character had to live with it, had to not only live with it, but was part of it, had remembered so much of it, and now was stuck with it. There was no exit, this immortality, right? And so that's kind of where it came from, and it's been that exploration of that theme throughout the series so far, and will continue to be exploration of that as we continue throughout all of what became IronVerse Comics with these different characters. It was taking that idea and then wanting to build a universe around opposing some of the harder aspects of that weight. And making them, comic book characters, so physically manifesting them, making them, iconic as you can, and that kind of stuff, making them something that could be grasped instead of these thought forms, these big ideas. And I just wanted to do that, and then kind of do a Heavy Metal Justice League kind of thing going in there. And it's changed since then. It's gone more the One Piece direction, where it's going to be working towards assembling a crew almost, more than like a superhero universe kind of deal. But it's still based on that, just having your mind grasp what's out there and sometimes the difficulty with it, right?
Oh yeah, I totally relate to that with my own series, with Ghost Shard, it kind of brings in a lot of the thoughts that I had growing up, because my family was military, and so like war and death and like honor, that kind of thing was really popular as far as like a discussion in my family. And so I definitely feel that how do you translate your experiences into something tangible that you can show someone else without telling someone else. You know what I mean? Like, you need to show it to them without telling them exactly what your experiences were, but just communicate thoughts, ideas, and feelings. I mean, that's how visual narrative works, right?
Exactly. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, for that the spark really was, I at 13, 14, I was just writing. I did a lot of plays when I was younger in terms of
Mm-hmm.
writing plays. I found that more to my style than prose writing, which I feel you throw in so much extra just to fill space that it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of it's a waste to me. It's a waste of energy to have to fill in that space when you can just communicate the idea, and then maybe what I like most about sequential art is when you make it a collaborative effort and you get something more than even what you had originally intended out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big one. That's the big one. And what got me to actually pull the trigger on moving to comics was jumping into comics. Ghost Rider: Road to Damnation by Garth Ennis and Clayton Crane. The art from Clayton Crane was the coolest thing I had ever seen as a young man. I was just so stoked with his coloring and artistic style. I'd never thought art like that was out there, and so that got me hooked. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
Garth Ennis's dark humor just I was like, oh wow, you can write like that too. And so I was like, okay, fine. I've done plays, right? So how do you write a comic script? And when I found out there's so many different ways that almost
Yes.
every writer I've ever met has a different
Mm-hmm.
way of doing it, I was hooked. I was like, okay, there's no wrong way.
Exactly.
Just whatever makes it happen allows the energy to flow works, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the best kind of art for me. And the I mean, I could go into, and I have many different places how you meet an artist, or how I met my
Mm-hmm.
artist, and how we worked for a good chunk of time, and then pitching to publishers for a good chunk of time, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually giving up on that and moving to crowdfunding, having the initial one fail until I joined social media, and then having to figure out networking. But I know later down the line we're going to talk about those things. But
Mm-hmm.
the main thing is, yeah, it was just it's something I've had a desire to communicate and share with the world, and I even wrote in the beginning of the issue, tenacity will get you through anything, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the bit I've learned with it, and so I'm stubborn by nature,
Mm-hmm.
and this works stubborn by nature, and that's a good chunk of what success we've had comes from is we keep
Mm-hmm.
at it.
But that's really all you can do sometimes. And a lot of people, when they think about going into comics professionally, they think it's as simple as like throwing some panels together and then just like throwing it at a publisher and they accept it. And it's really not. It's a long road. I mean, like my own manga, I've been working on off and on like after work for like 11 years now, and it's just super crazy that you've been working on yours even longer. That's just wild to me. That
Yeah.
it's like I thought 11 years was a long time. Like, I can't even imagine, because I didn't even start drawing until I was like 17, 18, and then like to see someone who started like as a much younger kid, man, I'm jealous. But so when you were starting, going back to that, when you were starting as like a younger child, did you have, or when you were thinking about making comics, or when you were thinking of the Ironverse ideas, did you have an idea for like how long you wanted it? You kind of mentioned that earlier, that it was kind of shorter and now it's kind of turning into a longer epic, much similar to One Piece. Do you have any ideas on how long it might go?
Well, we can make it. We forged with Jack. I wanted a character that would have unlimited potential for unlimited writers, artists, and creatives for basically any idea they could have. This
Mm.
is a character that's had thousands of lives, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you could put in any of those lives and
Oh,
store
so.
that as a one shot or as a longer
Mm-hmm.
series, whatever. So
Right.
it's infinite potential,
I
but
love
the
it.
main storyline has a definitive end.
Mm-hmm.
And between myself and the co-editor over at IronVerse Comics Dollar Coins, who does
Mm-hmm.
Cactus Coyote, which we might talk about later on,
Mm-hmm.
we've got the definitive. It could just be the first act, or it could be the finale. It could go
Mm-hmm.
either way, which I love. But
Yeah.
honestly, when I came up with it, I wanted to build something that had that level, that Marvel, DC, gigantic, grandiose potential of just going on forever, even long past my own ability to create. Right.
That's such a crazy
That's always the
concept.
idea.
I love that
Yeah.
concept that you can literally just bring on like even just like a guest artist for like a short one shot and just have like small little strips, little ideas. Like I think that's what attracted me to it so much when I realized that it like this is one character that has lived so many lives and there's so many different stories. Like I would love to see like maybe special guest anthologies where it's just like or maybe like a Meanwhile comic format where it's just like maybe a few pages, but like a whole series, like a whole anthology of stuff like that. Like that is just there's just so much potential with this series. It's really really exciting. So like I can't. That's why I was wondering if you had like a length in mind. That's good. I like that.
No,
That's not a bad thing.
I mean, yeah, if we had, if a caveat for some kind of funding came with a definitive length for something, sure, we could work that, and it still wouldn't finish the work. This work is never going to be finished. I've had one of my one of the reviewers I've respected more about the work had mentioned that this as a creator he should know that he's never going to finish this work. And I was like, yeah, I know that's the bittersweet part of it. My hope and with the character again, this is supposed to be a representation of humanity bearing all this weight, and you can't not have all this beautiful infinite potential and quite horrific infinite potential if you want to go there in this character to honor what the thought form, the idea is supposed to be of him without having that space, right? That's one of the compromises is it's doubtful. I'm not going to be able to finish finish it like Oda finishes eventually.
Right. Eventually, maybe if you. I don't know. One Piece just keeps on going, doesn't it? So
it does.
So on that note, with a series continuing for a long period of time, you already mentioned obviously this is a personal like passion project, and then it became something way more. So at what point did you decide along this process of like making these ideas just kind of for fun? Like, was there something that you saw or thought about that changed from making this is sort of like just a fun passion project to actually making the decision, oh hey, I'm gonna make this something? So like, is there a time where you felt like you were ready to make that decision to actually go, okay, I'm gonna make this like a real thing, like this is gonna be legit? Like was there something that happened, and how did you know you were ready? Did you?
Yes, yeah. So, I originally wrote the first like 4 issues of Jack as a graphic novel, self-contained little graphic novel, 144 pages. That was the first thing, just to get the ideas and everything just down, just to get it out of my head, and so it existed. And then, like a year or two after, my mother passed, and that became it was a hard part of my life. It's never not going to be hard. But I ended up with a little bit of cash. I was very down. I can say I was exceedingly down, and I was looking for something to lift me up and to explore these thought processes and this pain, and to share it. Again, it's that looking glass from childhood to adulthood, and making those transformations. And Jack was already there as a ability to do that. So I eventually, when I had just a little bit, I had no idea how much comics cost to make. I had no idea, the process or anything. I was not a talented artist, nor have I had the dedication to be able to really draw. I'm pretty ADD about things. It's very hard for me to be disciplined on something like that.
Me too.
So eventually, extreme talent. I really appreciate your work.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. But nonetheless, I was like, okay, well, I know collaborative art, so I'm not alone if I can find somebody who gets what I'm doing. And so I started trying through different artists, through different channels. Again, I had no idea how much comics make, so I'm contacting these people and telling them my budget. And they'll I got a couple no answers. I got one guy who was slightly interested, but then I didn't hear back from him. And I was like, okay, fine, this isn't working from a distance. So let's check Craigslist.
My gosh, Craigslist.
Right. So I do. I try it. My hometown, I just put that out just because, if you can meet somebody, get face to face, you can communicate a little bit better than through text or even voice. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
there's a level of connection that can be made that's just it's near impossible otherwise. And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. See what kicks up. This is a small artist community. I live in Taos, New Mexico. So I was thinking there's probably somebody who might be interested. And again, these people I had contacted that didn't get back to me, they didn't help me out by saying, well, that's below budget, or, that's not enough to do this. Nobody told me
Oh,
anything.
so you didn't even, you just so you literally were just shooting in the dark still.
Yeah, I was still shooting in the dark. And then this fella, Maxi Dallo, wonderful cat from Argentina, he comes up from Santa Fe in here. Used to more before the whole pandemic thing happened,
Mm-hmm.
but he was here, he was around, he was just a couple years younger than me at the time, and he was kind of interested. He responded to the Craigslist ad, and I showed up with the script and a copy of the script and such to a McDonald's, and we met at McDonald's. He showed up with a
McDonald's.
portfolio just to show me what he can do. He
Mm-hmm.
was mainly a children's illustrator in Argentina, so it was more that kind of whimsical
Mm-hmm.
fantasy look to his work. Some was watercolor that was gorgeous. I mean, he's an extreme talent. I'm very blessed to have met the man.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to talking, and he was interested in what we did, and he agreed to do it far below what any comics professional should ever work for.
Oh.
No question.
Oh
Because
goodness.
I told him what budget I had, and he's like, okay. I don't know if he needed the money or he liked
Mm-hmm.
me or probably both.
Mm-hmm. Or you just
but,
like the
but
story. Sometimes if you like the
yeah,
story, you're willing to work for a little cheaper.
yeah, a little cheaper.
Little
This
cheaper.
man, this man. I'm not going to reveal how much he did for it because it's just. I'm
That's
so
fair.
grateful we've been able to not only increase his wage above industry standard with the
Nice.
campaigns period, but that he's been getting other work at that level. So he has
Gus.
now established. Yes, he's now
Mm-hmm.
established his rate, which is
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
exactly what should happen. Like, I'm really glad that because I was like, oh no, this poor guy, and then I'm like, oh man, I wish I could make above industry standards. That's awesome. That's really
yeah.
good.
So, nonetheless, I found that connection I was looking for, somebody who got what we wanted to do, and even better, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was able to do things with the work that made it work. Writing as somebody who's never worked in comics, the visual nature of it, that's not exactly where I come from. I come from the idea bit of it, which can be very abstract, and
Mm-hmm.
he could nail that. He could communicate it, and I was so happy to let him do so, because every time
Mm-hmm.
he didn't lose what I was doing. He simply added to it or made it work.
That's like the
Where it
perfect
couldn't have.
combo with like a writer and artist. That's like the combo that you want to have. Like there's sometimes there are writers who are just like, oh, I don't know, like just do whatever you want. And then sometimes there are artists who are like, oh, I want to make all these changes, and they make the writer unhappy. So like finding that perfect medium, like dude, I feel like you hit the lottery
I did, and this whole
when.
work is one of those things.
Mhm.
Again, it's been super. It there's no reason it should exist,
Right.
especially at the level it does. But yeah, so that's kind of I took the risks because I had hit rock bottom. That's
Mhm.
kind of what happened after I ran that first campaign too. I was like, well, fine, I have to figure out how to market because publishers aren't going to do it.
Yes,
They're
marketing.
not interested in this. So I'm just like,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, I'll bite that bullet that I never wanted to bite. And
Mhm.
it's worked out for me, and I've seen it not work out for others, and
Mhm.
it's had its own lessons and all that. And I think there's a question down the line about that, and we'll get more into
Mhm.
depth
Yeah.
about it. But nonetheless, again, just being stubborn and wanting something to happen and allowing the space and creating the spaces for it to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of how it worked.
Well, and it's so important to not just like I don't want to say like be optimistic because that makes it sound really cheesy, but to be like you said, tenacious about it, keep going, being persistent, but also creating an air that people want to work around you. Like there are a few creators that I've seen that have wanted to do Kickstarters or have done them and they've failed, and these people can be like, just so utterly negative. And it's like, why would I want to keep supporting you if you're going to be so negative and blame people for not wanting to support you, blah, blah, blah? Like, there's far more that goes into it than just, oh, this looks really cool or this was drawn really well. It's like, who are you as a brand, as a person, as a creator? It's like it's more than just a superficial, oh, this is a cool comic. And so again, that's why I think personally you're such a fascinating creator to me, because you have this huge space around you full of creators that not only like are you supporting and wanting to support and promoting them, but like they obviously they return the favor as I am here now. But it's like, yeah, it's about creating an atmosphere, a community. That's why with with Global Comics, that's what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to create this community and go, hey, like I want this environment where we can all teach each other and learn from each other, and like have other people that we can use as examples of, hey, that person succeeded, let's try doing what they do. So I guess moving forward from that, speaking about like its success and moving forward, did you try any other options? You said you went to publishers, so you had tried other options to figure out how to monetize Jack Irons before you went through crowdfunding?
Eventually, so there was a step in between giving up on pitching to publishers. For about 3 years, I ground at the publisher game and got one response from a tiny English publisher who said, I enjoyed reading it, but it's not something we would publish.
Oh, that's it? That's the only response you got?
Yep. Big guys, little guys,
/files.
all kinds of different publishers, all kinds. Because again, jumping into comics, I had, as I'm sure many do, I looked up how to break into comics, right? And you'll get a million different answers, and some of them are complete garbage. Some of them, at least, they will communicate a good idea or something that you can work, but it won't work for you the way it worked for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, and it's honestly for me it's been finding your own path, and I had to take my lumps and put in the time to figure out what that path was. And so after all of that time, I was like, well, this isn't getting anywhere. Nobody's able to see it. Let me go ahead. And so at this point, it was just me and Maxie, right? I had lettered. I'm a terrible letterer.
Me too. It's okay. Me too.
Okay. but so it was, I think the letter part of why publishers didn't take a look at it. They don't want to assemble a team for you. That's right. One thing they don't tell you. Publishers want something already. They want a motor and an engine already running. They don't want the parts.
Right.
And they don't want fix-em-uppers, which is kind of sad because I think there's a lot of good that could be done with fix-em-upper projects that could just be amazing. But publishers don't want that. They're in the money game first and last. They have to be. That's how they survive. It's not wrong. It's just that's the game.
It's just an unnecessary evil. Like you have to think about that ultimately, because if you aren't paying the bills, you're not going to be able to put out the comics to keep paying the bills, and then it just becomes suspicious downward spiral into bankruptcy and liquidation. So it's just an unnecessary evil that we have to think about, as creators going to a publisher. I'm kind of in that game right now too, and the talks with one, and it's like super scary. It's like super unstable, and like I think this is the first time I've ever heard back from one, which is funny because I didn't get it like applying to pitch to them. It ended up being something else. Anyway, sorry, back on you. So you heard back from that one, and then you decided.
Nice. Again, after about 3 years, somebody actually was like, "I enjoyed the read. Thank you for sending it. Not something we want." That was fine. At least it was nice. After grinding at that wall. So I'm like, okay, fine. Somebody read it. Somebody enjoyed it. Somebody in the game. So fine. Nobody really wants to put the work in to improve it or refine it, and I don't know how. So I'm going to just put it out there, and then at least it's out there, and if I never make any more, I shared it with the world. I did my job. Right. And so I looked into webcomics. I looked into webcomic platforms, Webtoons and Tapas. And for me, the reason I ran, it connects. Reason I went to Indiegogo was no reason besides it wasn't Kickstarter. I'm always, I want to go for the little guy.
Right.
I always want to go for the underdog, at least the perceived underdog. And so that's what I did. So I was like, Webtoons or Tapas, I'm going to go ahead and publish on Tapas. I had no idea about publishing. I didn't know I could put it on both at the time. I was just like, okay, I'm going to publish it here. And so that's what I did. And then I was like, okay, so that's out now.
Did you have any success? Oh, you didn't? No.
Exactly.
Oh my! I would have thought something like that might have done well. But there really isn't like a Western genre there. It's mostly just fantasy and on tapas. Like I was on tapas for a while too. Like the fantasy genre is just so crazy inundated with
romance. Those are their two that they love. Romance and fantasy. Again, I had no idea. I just wanted to go for the underdog of the web publishing at that time. Now they're doing pretty well for themselves. I'm glad for them. But nonetheless, it was out there. I was like, okay, nobody's reading it passively. The platform isn't helping me. It's there. People can access it, but there's nothing. So I was like, okay, I can use it existing to run a crowdfunding campaign. I can point people to it and be like, well, I want to make number 2 digitally. I want to continue the series. So I'll show them what we've already done and go from there. And in that process of marketing for the crowdfunding campaign and sharing this tapas link to the first 24 pages in black and white, poorly lettered, a letterer on Reddit, one of the few, I've had 2 really good things happen through Reddit. One was this, which is a letterer looked at it, he loved the story, and he said my lettering was terrible. Can I please letter this for you?
Oh, yes. Wow.
So I'm like, yes, please. I know it's bad. It doesn't look great, but it works. You can read it, right? That was my only point, and I couldn't afford. The budget was spent on Maxi. If I could have given him more, I would have. So I was happy to do that, and then he got back to that, and then I used that re-lettered copy, which is still up now on Tapas if people want to check it out just for posterity and read the black and white version. People like black and white. So
yes, of course.
One's great. With that, I was able to feel more confident in running this crowdfunding campaign, which got $10 in the first 60 days.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And that's going through Reddit and just some posting areas, right? And so that's
self-promo on Reddit. That's ballsy.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, fine, that doesn't work. Social media it is. And so I bit the bullet on Twitter in particular. Twitter's been my success, and I'm very grateful for it. I jumped in at a time where people were very hungry for different content, comics-wise, outside of the big publishers. And so I levied that. I used as much as I could in there. And with the quality of the line art and such, we got noticed. And eventually on the second run of the campaign, we started getting steam. And that was wonderful to do. And I was just, I'm at, I think now I've been on Twitter 4 years. I'm at like 188,000 posts.
Goodness gracious.
So yeah, I was beating my head against the wall as hard as I could, and it did work. Because you gotta be clever, you gotta be friendly, you gotta be interactive, you gotta be supportive, you've gotta be a little bit of fun, and you gotta be passionate and share your passion for what you do. And if it's good, not only will people say, that's good, that looks good, something I'm interested in, but if the creator's passionate, then they can even take that further step into faith for the future of that thing.
Right. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Oh, I was going to say, I've noticed that a lot of people that really struggle with the self-promotion their social medias are very, very quiet. Usually when I see someone's campaign, especially like in Discord, or like, hey, check out my artwork, check out my campaign, like I'll go check out their social media profiles, and they're relatively quiet. They don't interact with a lot of people, and I'm definitely a proponent of, like, you have to be active, not just with your own work, but with talking to other people, sharing other people. Networking is super hypercritical. There's this huge fear on Twitter for whatever reason, especially in the artist community, at least like artists in particular, that you have to curate your Twitter page, you have to curate your Instagram, you have to curate everything so that it's only your content. And if anyone comes to your page and can't see what is your content, then no one's going to want anything to do with you. I'm sure you've seen this big small artist discourse on Twitter recently, but that's basically what people were saying. And it's like, no. Like, if you want to network with people and show them that, hey, like, I'm actually active in the community, I would rather follow someone who is constantly sharing other people's work and their own, rather than someone who only shares their work. That's all they do. That's all they talk about. And it's like, I love your work, but do you do anything else? Are you active in your community? Do you give back to them? Like, what are you doing with your life other than just making your own artwork? Like, I want to see, personally, people who are active in the community. At least that's who I like following nowadays, versus just like, hey, here's my cool art, look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. So what I've found in exploring this community that we're talking about quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit, all over the spectrum. That's another thing that I've been blessed to be able to do with, which has its pros and its cons, but I find way more pros because I'm exposed to the widest spectrum of what's out there. It is that comics is a very unique medium, a very unique fandom, and I'm going to use that term specifically.
Mm.
That many, if not almost all, that I encounter and interact with, comic readers, have maybe a desire or a belief or a feeling, and I think it's true, that comics is a artistry, a storytelling medium which is exceedingly accessible to tell stories in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like movie fans. Not every movie fan wants to make a film,
Right,
but
right.
many, many, many comics and manga fans want or have a desire or have an idea or have a feeling that they could make comics, they could make
Mm-hmm.
manga. And again, I think it's true. I think it's very true. But it's something that you have to recognize because you can come to this table thinking that there's limited amounts of energy to go around, and then
Mm-hmm.
you get kind of that defensive, I can only do my own work, I can only
Yes.
show and share my own work.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go to it with a table that is in progress. It's a work in
Mm-hmm.
progress, and it can only get bigger and better and stronger and more
Mm-hmm.
varied and more beautiful. And that's where I went into it right away, because I saw what comics was. It's this gluttony of artistry and just incredible imagination from all kinds of people, all kinds of ideas. And when I come across somebody who can share that passion through their work or through sharing others' work or just
Mm-hmm.
from reading and sharing what they love about the work itself when it's done,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's no way I couldn't take part in it.
Right, right.
That was what brought me to comics again. Is I saw art that was something that blew my teenage mind. It was so badass. I'd never
Mm-hmm.
seen anything like Clayton Crane's work. It was when digital coloring and line work started to kind of take hold. He was one of those pioneers for me, and that was just what he was able to pull off. And when I saw that, it's like, movies can't hold a candle to this. That animation comes close, but it's still the potential and the ease of communication when comics are done right is just amazing. And so I want to see that table grow, and I know it has the potential. Again, it's infinite potential. That's what we try to what became IronVerse Comics slogan is when reality belongs to evil, heroes are inevitable. This growth, this positivity, this ability to create, it's going to keep growing. You can do what you want around it, but you can also take part in it and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that, you exactly hit what I was thinking about right there when you were talking about, well, like you can curate and feel like everyone's against you, and like there's limited space to go around, and I mean, while technically sure there's limited money to go around, that doesn't mean there's unlimited goodness to go around, or unlimited wholesomeness to go around. Like it's there, and like sometimes you can just it's just finding that right sometimes it's just finding that right person, it's just finding that right group, that right community that can be there and be supportive for you, and also you be able to give back. Like if you just take, you're not going to succeed. Like if you just keep expecting people just to give you stuff and you never give back, you're not going to succeed, honestly, because people are just going to see you as a taker. But if you're willing to actually like operate within the community rather than operating next to it and then calling for their help, like operate within that community and give back, and then you can say, hey, can I have some help, they're way more likely to actually like give back to you because they see you as part of their community.
That's what I've seen again and again, from
Mm-hmm.
the higher levels of the professional comics industry to the lowest levels of just trying to share your web comic.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I mean, I think it's kind of a rule for life. You get back what you give most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. That's been what I've found. Not everybody will find that. Everybody has a different life experience, of
Right,
course.
right.
But in mine, and from what I've heard others, that's, if you're being a conduit more than a sponge, you're going to get more out of what you're doing.
Yes,
Basically, whatever it is.
that's really good. That's a really good metaphor. So talking about with this whole like crowdfunding and community and networking, So when you decided that, like, you kind of talked about your first crowdfunding and how it didn't go very well. So obviously something wasn't planned well, or you weren't ready, or you didn't have the networking knowledge that you do now. So when you decided crowdfunding was what you wanted to do, how did you go about planning that first campaign? Was there like a specific process? And kind of along that question, like, what kind of like feelings did you have that you were worried about? Like, obviously, we know now it didn't go very well. Is there something you wish you would have done differently while planning?
Honestly, that first campaign I don't remember much of.
Oh.
Mainly because it didn't, there wasn't much there. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
doing much. Again, it was before I joined social media. So what I was doing didn't get traction,
Mm.
and it wasn't enough. The second campaign, I was very loud, and I found my places to work.
Right.
Yeah, again, with people who were looking very much for things outside of what the mainstream was publishing at the time, and we are very much that.
Mm-hmm.
No question, you won't find anything
Mm-hmm.
like our work in the mainstream because of how it how it operates, the ideas it works with, its focuses, and it's a very niche. I mean, it's a weird space western fantasy story.
Mm-hmm.
It's science fiction fantasy story. It's
Right.
it's a one reviewer of our work that really enjoyed it, which was great. This is post the campaign, of course, and post
Mm-hmm.
it getting color, which is another great story of how I met quite a few of our collaborators.
Mm-hmm.
It is that I used a shotgun when I should have used a sniper rifle, but nonetheless hit my target. Um, and that's
Yeah.
how I marketed.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I built this universe, and how we built this universe. To be
Right.
fair, the visual iconography
Mm-hmm.
was key, if not
Yes.
the biggest thing. Because again, in comics, if your book doesn't look good, or at least have there could be very loose, very cool stylistic choices that can be made,
Mm-hmm.
but it still has to feel like it was a stylistic choice and not a limitation of the artist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I see a lot of works that the artist. I am so glad they're doing the work, because if they continue and persistent, it's just going to get better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still maybe not something that can pull weight. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
professional level, which is kind of
It
hard to say,
it
because
is.
I'm
Yeah.
not a professional in any
Mm-hmm.
terms of this thing. But that has that cleanness to it, that feeling of refinement to it, that feeling that you're looking at skill that's been honed for hours and hours and hours and hours,
Well, I mean, I
right?
would say your work looks
Um,
professional. Like I know that it's your team, but your team personally, they look very, very professional. The artwork is clean. Clearly, you guys are successful. You guys are still going at it. You've been able to up everyone's pay to fairer wages and treat them well. They obviously love working for you. So personally, I don't think professional simply means that you have to be like recognized by the industry necessarily. Like an industry giant like Marvel, DC, Image, whatever. I don't think you have to be recognized by that to be considered professional. I mean, so I think you're being unfair to yourself and your team
well,
that you guys are way more professional than you guys seem to think you are.
I would say they are extremely professional, and I work well in the battleground I chose.
Mhm.
It's the best way to say. I'm very good at that, and yes, I'm very blessed that these people like working with me through stumbles and through the learning process,
That's
and that we
indie
got
though.
so far. Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
sometimes, I mean, there's a million ways these things go wrong, especially with
Yes.
collaborators.
Mhm.
You can start off on the wrong foot and not even know it, and that's
Yes.
that's the scariest part.
Mhm.
And I've lucked out and found good people, people who they want to do this, and so we are able to make it work. Just like this campaign for issue number 4. Originally, it was to launch this year, but I wanted to launch with Pages started.
Mm.
Since Maxie got a huger demand for his talent, which I'm so glad for, he really
Mhm.
deserves it. And it's hard out there. Argentina has no comics industry. They have a little bit of a children's book industry, so that's
Mhm.
what he was able to do out there. Um, I mean, it's tough. And anywho, he had scheduled a different project, and so this was the first time he was inundated with so much work. He didn't know how to schedule it well enough.
That's
So
like
that
the
was one of the
scariest part of success. Yeah, that's the scariest part of
Yes.
success is like once you finally actually get success, like how do you like handle it? And we'll get to that more later, but like no one
Yeah.
prepares you for like, oh, hey, I want to do this. But then like when
Mhm.
you finally get successful at it, you're like, "Oh no, now what?"
Yeah.
Now
And
what?
so he's pumping out wonderful pages
Mhm.
for another project, which should end pretty soon if folks are interested, called Kids and Monsters. It's kind of uh, it's a little bit of a Pokemon kind of feel to it, but
Oh,
more of the,
cute.
the gothic horror bit. It's coming out of kids'
Ooh.
backpacks. It deals with childhood trauma, and this it's a
Mhm.
wonderful, fancy, beautiful work. Again, if you like the art in Jack Irons,
Mhm.
it's the next level, right? He
Nice.
continuously improves. Just wonderful talent. Anywho, so that's that. I had to push. Well, I didn't have to. That's the thing. We I don't want to work with another creative team, even though I do have the option. I certainly
Mhm.
have the option, but it's his bit of magic that lent Jack so much strength, and
Mhm.
so I had to make that decision after talking and promises being not fulfilled and things like that, where it's that's part of the collaboration bit that I'm learning and dealing with now, but
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
some people deal with issue one, deal with
Mhm.
page one, where it just doesn't work, and you can't. No, at no point in any of this process was I scared of failing. That didn't matter to me. I just wanted to
No.
see what would happen if I tried. And some people are
Hmm.
scared of failing, and
Mhm.
that's this is an industry where it's fine. Go ahead, fail. It's all good. You
Mhm.
try again. Nobody's going to hold it against you unless you do something stupid with received money or some
Mhm.
other craziness.
Right.
You know, you
Yeah.
you, ta- you take a big advance and you never
Mhm.
deliver any pages, or
Exactly.
you fund your crowdfunding campaign and never deliver the book.
There's a
That's a different
couple of those.
story.
I've seen a couple of
Yeah.
those, but no, that's a really good point. That a lot of people when they start create these Kickstarters, they get very very stressed about, oh well, what
Yes.
if it fails? What if it fails? Like what about this? What about this? And it's like yes, your Kickstarter itself can technically fail, but all failing means in terms of like crowdfunding, kickstarting, and you go to like whatever platform you're using, all it means is that you just didn't reach your goal. But it usually means that there was somewhere else where some more work needs to be done. And so for me personally, whenever I see a quote failure, I just see it as okay, so I didn't do something right. This is the perfect opportunity to learn something. Like my own series, I've restarted chapter 1 7 times just trying to like figure out like what style do I want, how do I want to do these pages, like the publisher I'm talking to, they're like, your artwork looks really great, but like your pages need work because your pacing is off. And so like I had worked super hard on those, like you've seen me posting those like the work in progress for these pages and streaming these pages, like they took forever to do, and then just to be told, oh, your pacing's wrong, we need to start over. It feels bad, but it's okay. And I think if more people focused on like what can you learn if your Kickstarter doesn't succeed, or even just barely succeeds, that like as whatever you define successful or failure as, then if you can learn from that and say okay, like learn, analyze, adjust, learn, analyze, adjust, so like
That's
basically
where I've
yeah.
always been. You
Mhm.
gotta adapt to survive. That's just
Mhm.
the game we're given overall, and it's so many microcosms it applies to as well. And if you take it all as learning opportunity to grow stronger for the next attempt, you're good.
Mhm. Yep.
As long as you are treating the attempts with the respect they deserve. Again, not
Mhm.
taking money and running, not
Mhm.
respect, especially in a collaborative art. That is the number one battle. Then the second
Mhm.
battle is finding a customer base and finding a reader base and all that. But the number one battle is to maintain something cohesive and wonderful to bring to the public. And that's very tough, but it's not something you
Mhm.
should be afraid of.
So I
You
guess
got to If you want to do it, you got to try.
so that brings up another question that I have for you. So there's this big thing that I've heard as far as like when you're creating a series, like do you define your target audience before you create your series, or do you define that afterwards? When you were going with Jack Irons and doing your marketing and promoting your campaigns, like did you have like a specific marketing campaign strategy, or was it just let's try it and see if it works?
So Jack in particular was made for me. It was the audience. It was what I wanted that wasn't out there, right? But
Hmm.
after that point, after the work getting
Mhm.
done and then trying to market it again, as a character, this character was it's supposed to be a representation of everyone. So my hope is there is something communicated that anyone can latch onto. So my target audience was then refined from not just myself, but all the other, everyone else. And
Mhm.
then at that point, I go with that again, the shotgun attempt, and then I try and see where the pellets land, and
Mhm.
then refine, and hopefully it hits a lot of different places and gives me a lot of different ways to market and to network and to connect with people from different all kinds of different walks of life and all kinds of different tastes in books.
Mhm.
um, when I hit Twitter again, the main folks that were interested in things outside of Marvel and DC were agitated Marvel and DC fans. There's no what if and or but about it.
Mhm.
That's the folks who are willing to throw down money to have something else.
Mhm.
So that's what I was able to hit and communicate with and develop rapport with and find other artists who had also developed rapports and had quality and all that and then networked and not so much that it was a very like tight group or anything, but it was people who enjoyed each other's work and wanted to see it continue and succeed.
Mhm.
And I never came from a point of anger saying, do this instead of this and that. No, I came forward with this idea that I have something that hopefully could appeal to anyone, and that was my hope. Now it's again, it's a very niche thing. So as I found, it's not going to appeal to everybody. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, that's just
But
not how life works. Like you're never gonna appease
exactly.
everyone with the work that you do. You know, that's just like I hate it when people like when I ask people like who's your audience and they go, oh, anyone, everyone, and I'm like, that's not the right answer. Like,
that was that was a stepping stone to a more refined answer. Again, it was
right.
people who enjoyed westerns, people who enjoyed more philosophical thinking works.
Mm-hmm.
It was people who enjoyed
Demographics,
uh,
psychographics, kind of getting into like the weeds of like how marketing actually works, and like what helped me was like identifying, and I went over this with Eric from Global Comics. He was helping me kind of like go through this sort of like mini marketing program, and he's like, okay, so like who does work similar to you? And I'm like, well, this one, this one, this one. He's like, okay, so what do those people like? And so it was like it was helpful, but at the same time, it was really stressful because it's like I have to think about all this stuff to be successful. Are you kidding me? It was
yeah,
stressful,
it's
but
it's
it
tough.
paid off though.
Yeah, and part of the just again this wonderful big table that can be perceived as not having enough space is that you can rub people wrong, of course, by trying to
Mhm.
to go next to them. You like this, you might like what I'm doing, that kind
Mhm.
of thing. You can have trouble finding spot. You can threaten people just by being good as well,
Yeah.
and that's a big one. Very much surprised me in comics. Again, it's just this wonderful, creative, imaginative thing, but that means a lot of it's very close to people's hearts, so they're going to be very
Mhm.
defensive about it, and I
Right.
totally understand that. um, it's a trip. You really you can't be afraid. You have to be tenacious. I recommend being friendly and fun as you can with your work, especially if it's a fun, more general, uplifting work. Jack is a presentation of hope, not
Mhm.
so much uplifting, fun gag kind of stuff. I
It
do
has
put
darker
humor in there too.
undertones, yeah. It has darker undertones, but it's still in a way it's kind of comforting just to see him go through all of these travels, all of these like all of these battles, and like not only just like on the outside, but he has like his inside battles too, the inner conflicts, which is really refreshing to see in comics because in comics in general, like oh it's big explosions and this happens and this happens and this happens, and it's like can we
Yeah.
slow down and like get to know our characters a little bit more? And I think that's like a big difference between, I'm not saying like it's a manga, but that's one of the big differences between comics and manga is that comics tend to be focused more on like the what, the fate, and then like manga tends to be more focused on like the who, the will, the person. And reading IronVerse was so refreshing to me to see like, oh my gosh, like like this is what I'm looking for in manga, but it's in a comic form. And Western, I'll be honest, Westerns and sci-fi are not normally a genre that I read, and so for me, like finding a series that's completely outside my norm, like I said, just made it even more fascinating because I'm like, oh my gosh, I never read stuff like this. This is so interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of that again is it's set dressing, it's stylistic choice. It's resonances that I had as a child that really like stuck with me, that I wanted to iconographize and communicate a lot of the ideas they were. And a lot of science fiction is oppression and dystopian feelings, so of course that was part of the setting. Philosophy and religions are another big part of what I was getting into as I, and still do, as I was growing. And so that got in there, both with the concept of the four horsemen, which are the pillars of everything IronVerse. Those four, everything rotates around them. But also, this issue number 4 is a retelling of a very ancient Buddhist tale. I'm very excited to see it actually manifest. Nice. But it's again, it's set dressing. I'm not trying to do those genres tropes. I'm not trying to do that. It's stylistic intention so that the ideas are communicated more clearly.
Right, exactly. And communication is the whole point. I mean, it's visual narrative. You want to be able to communicate the thoughts, the feelings, the ideas. And, if you just show what characters do versus how they do it, like what they're thinking, how they're acting, their goals, their dreams, their fears, like all of that stuff, the story can feel really shallow without those things. So kind of going in deeper, is always all really helpful. So kind of continuing our conversation. So as you were going through each of these volumes, did it feel easier to think about all these things, to think about, okay, like, also, well, not only that, like, the growth of the character, the growth of your storytelling, the growth of your skills, and that of those around you that you're working with. And then in addition to getting ready for each campaign, did it get easier as you go? Did you find that you found, like, they say that what's the phrase I'm looking for? That you open like you leave one frying pan to jump into another one sometimes. Did you find that sometimes you got into more trouble than it was worth, or did you find it got easier?
Your hope is with any of these processes, business in particular, is that you're not making the same mistakes. You'll always make new ones, but that you don't repeat the same ones. And so that's definitely been something that we've been lucky to be following. I haven't repeated any of the same mistakes. At the beginning, again, I adapted each time. That first failed campaign, my major adaptation was going to social media and actively promoting and learning how that environment worked. And that got me a bunch of really positive connections, just a ton, and continues to. Right now, but there's and that's the big one and then each of those connections allowed me to learn new things. And there's some things I didn't want to deal with. A lot of the time, a lot of creators, they want to go to publishers because they just want to create. That's kind of where I come from too, but I found out I'm not going to be able to unless I figure out these other parts, these other mechanisms. It's just not something that was in the cards for me. I get that, and again, it'd be nice just to be writing and then getting paid for it. But this, again, if you're passionate about something, if something you really want to put out there and put out in the world, you need to find a way. And it's not probably going to be the same way as somebody else.
Exactly.
But there's going to be things you can learn from them along the way, one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully you're sharing that, right? Hopefully they're learning from you as well. And then you get this, again, a kind of a conduit, a symbiosis of growth. That's always the hope.
Oh yeah, I mean, always bring each other up while you're learning, and that's kind of now that you mentioned that, something I've kind of seen interestingly is like, at least maybe it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. But it was very like, oh, well, don't, like, why would you share your secrets with someone? Why would you share techniques with someone? Why would you share someone what brush you're using? Like, I've seen people that have asked me, why are you always giving away your secrets? Like, someone's just going to try to copy you. And it's like, well, if I help them learn something, then maybe they won't have to draw like me anymore. Maybe they won't try to draw like me anymore. Maybe they'll find that, like, this, like, for example, a brush. Like, for a digital artist, finding the right brush is like opening like the key to like the wonders of the universe. Like you find this perfect brushstroke that just works well for you, and it works. Like, I know it may sound silly, but to anyone who does specifically line art or is an inker, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, but people would ask me like, why are you giving that away? And it's like, why wouldn't I want to give it away? Like, maybe someday I'll need help from them, and now I can say like, hey, like, do you know about this? Or even just asking for feedback. Like, being afraid to share your what makes you successful, there's this like competition mindset that people at least used to have. I don't see it as bad as it is now, but I still see that mindset, and it just honestly just completely baffles me to see people that think like that. And then it's kind of leached, that kind of like toxic attitude is kind of leached into the idea of self-promotion. Like, how dare you try to self-promote your work, or people will just go somewhere, dump their links to their stuff, and then like you never hear from them ever again. It's like,
Yeah,
don't do that.
yeah, it's again, I mentioned earlier, comics, for a lot of creators, especially ones who do it for a long time, who are very persistent, it's very close to their heart.
Yes.
And so some might become more defensive about that, because who knows what that art means to them, really,
Right.
at the deepest level. I'm happy, and I've done it again and again. I share what this work means to me, because I hope that even a fraction of what it means to me can be translated to somebody else. And I've seen that from art that's been communicated to me, why I decided to do the work. My goal is to pass that on. That's how sequential art survives. That's how any kind of art survives, is that it is communicated to a next set of people, and it continues to be communicated. And so some people are threatened by that communication, and sometimes that's justified. There are some not so fun characters out there, but most of the time, by far, you got nothing to fear, just new experiences.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so when it came so speaking about that, the challenges of self-promotion. Self-promotion, we can feel really badly when some of us who are still very shy about self-promoting, which is why I haven't done a crowdfunding campaign yet of my own. Like, when you go to crowdfunds, people will apologize for putting out their links. Like, again, they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to bother their followers. They feel bad, like, constantly promoting it again and again and again. But you have to be consistent when you're promoting, especially when you have a live campaign. You need to be promoting it consistently. And even then, there tends to be this like influx at the very beginning and kind of at the very end of campaigns. So how do you manage promoting consistently throughout a campaign's lifespan? And do you ever struggle with the idea of, oh, well, I feel kind of guilty sharing it, again and again and again? Like, do you struggle with that at all?
I'm completely shameless. I love what I'm doing. I want people to enjoy it. And if they don't, they can move on. That's fine. I rarely get any negative feedback on that end. Again, Reddit's a tough one. Reddit,
Yeah.
usually it's just a mod slapping you down.
Right.
But on Twitter, on things like that, you just gotta have tact. You can be shameless, but as long as you're fun and engaging, and you're not monotonous, and you're not just a big one that a lot of artists have on Twitter is the whole self-promo in a thread that someone else is promoting their own work in.
Yes, that's so no.
That's a big one.
Big
that
no-no.
that one pisses off a lot of people who
Yeah.
otherwise would likely share your link, right?
Tactfully self-promote yourself.
Yes, that's the bit. Be a person first.
Right.
You don't walk up to somebody's con table and start trying to sell your book.
Right. Yeah.
You don't
Oh my
do
gosh, that would go so bad so fast.
And that's kind of what you're doing when you do that kind of action. But if you're fun, if you're talking to the guy and then it comes up like, oh, you do work too, then you got your opportunity.
Yes.
You've got to. A lot of artists don't have social skills. I didn't think
Me
I
neither.
did, and I still don't think I do. But at least I come into everything with respect, even when I shouldn't in a lot of cases. And that allows me to be shameless. It allows me to be brave and bold and to interact, because I know at the end of the day I'm not doing anything that would be harmful or that I avoid conflict in all cases. I do not like conflict. So that's the bit. social media, a lot of times you're coming to somebody's, again, their con table, their place, their
Mhm.
home, and if it's their work, again, you're coming to their heart. And
Right.
so it's important that you show that. And if you show that, and you can have a good back and forth, then usually they are more than happy, if not excited, to see what you're doing as well.
Right.
You got to be a
Networking.
decent person first,
Mhm.
and hope that that works. Now, a lot of people find other ways. That this is not the only path. This is
Right.
the path that I can live with. Some
Mhm.
people have a much more aggressive form of that. Some
Mhm.
people have, tangential marketing is, I guess, the best way. Buy my book comes way after whatever I'm disagreeing with or what I'm trying to oppose, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mhm.
And that's big on every side out here. Is, I'm opposing this
Mhm.
thing, therefore my work is good. That's not something I can do. I've never been
Oh,
able to do
I
that,
know exactly
and
what you're talking
it can
about.
work. But it can work very well,
Mhm.
and you know what? I don't begrudge others as long as there is no massive victim. I'm
Mhm.
anti-corporate. I'm anti a lot of things,
Mhm.
and so I'm fine seeing the little guy punch up. I'm always happy with that.
Mhm.
But it can go a lot of different ways, and some people are really good at it. Some people are terrible, and it's just mean. And
Yeah.
so it's, there's no wit to it, there's no artistry. Again, you got to have artistry if you have a lot more fallback and a lot more room to make mistakes if you come with respect than you
Mhm.
do if you go aggressive. But again, it's a risk reward thing. You can get a lot more, the potential of a bigger view, a bigger audience, I guess,
Mhm.
to your action for aggression. It's just how social media is built, which is super
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but but it's also more risky that it will be flipped on you very quickly.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
so there's a Miyamoto Musashi quote. There's more than what you have to understand that there's more than one path up the mountain, and
Mhm.
that's where I've always come from. I don't disrespect or try to knock down other paths that I did not want to take,
Mhm.
but you know. Be aware that there are others. My path worked for me, may not work for you, but hopefully you can see a stumble or see a good climb or a good catch and learn from it. And
Mhm.
that's what I would hope for anybody who's diving in here is you got to keep your eyes and ears open and
Mhm.
adapt. Be stubborn, but don't be rigid.
Right, yeah. So along with that, with consistency with your campaigns, how are you posting? Do you have like a set plan for how often you're going to post, where you're going to post as far as your promotional content? Is there a plan for the promotional as far as staying consistent so that you keep getting eyeballs throughout your campaign?
Um, it's different. Like, so the last campaign I ran was for a hardcover collected edition of 1 through 3 that was going to be on Kickstarter.
Mhm.
Well, it was on Kickstarter. I ran it.
Right.
It was it did not hit goal. It came very close, but it did
Hmm.
not hit goal.
Damn.
And so again, I'm anti rigidity. So no, I don't really have plans. I don't have
Mhm.
much of a of a huge idea beforehand. I have
Mhm.
pillars and stepping stones that are in place to work off of, but those don't always reach where they need to. And so I just bang my head against the wall till I break something. That's usually what happens. That's what happened the first
Well,
time.
gee,
And
obviously it's working for you.
yes. So far, we will see with
Mhm.
issue number 4, with raising everyone's rates, with
Mhm.
paper shortage. We'll see what that's like next year.
Yes, I've heard
With
about
a
that.
lot of these, with shipping costs. Again, we were talking about that. International is murder. Do
Mhm.
not add international to a campaign unless you know the exact time frame you're going
Mhm.
to be shipping those international in, or else you might be eating any planned profits that you had.
Yeah.
That's what happened a bit with me.
I've seen some
This for
people.
issue 3.
Yeah, I've seen some people that with for internationals, what they'll do is they'll just add on like an extra bunch of orders. They'll like for example they'll say they'll add on maybe 100 books to whatever like the minimum printing is if they need to raise it, or they'll just raise it up to like the next step in the minimal printing orders, and then they'll say, okay, well, now that everyone that ordered in my country has gotten their books, now I'll open up to international orders. So they actually kind of do it separately, as like a whole separate, not necessarily a campaign, but there's like a whole separate like like promotional period, just so that it's easier, so that they don't get absolutely murdered and they have more time to prepare and go, okay, well, I only have this many books. It's a lot easier than to risk saying, oh, hey, like I don't know where these are going to go out, like the books are already made, like I don't have to worry about this question, that question, that question. It gets really, really hard, and unfortunately, that's what I feel like that's what I really struggle with. You know, being in manga, most of my audience is not in the United States, and just being bloody honest. And so it's just, I don't know. Considering how well Demon Slayer did last year, there's a lot of manga fans here in the United States.
Yes, they're significant.
But
significant market share for that. But
right,
yeah.
But yeah, so it's really interesting just to see how things are changing so fast, especially with the paper shortage. Like even Global Comics, we were talking about that and how this is going to be impacting like the future of comics, moving towards a digital platform, not like, or rather starting to focus on digital availability rather than like, and maybe books becoming extra, like I don't want to say extra because that makes it sound really bad. You know what I mean though? Like it's not necessarily the primary format anymore. Like that's kind of one thing that scares me, because I always wanted to have like a tangible in hand book of my stuff, and we actually got on that topic of like, what is it that people are going to want? Like, where is this going to go? Do we want to keep doing like traditional printed copies, or do we want to, as an industry, move toward, or is it going to move towards more of a digital only platform? And it's kind of scary.
It's going to be the big guys who figure that out. Shonen Jump, they're doing amazingly well with their app, and they offer everything they had. There's no indie publisher, there's not even Marvel and DC with their massive and ancient library can keep up with the level of content at the price that Shonen Jump puts out digitally. It's not going to happen.
Well, it's not just Shonen Jump. It's Seven Seas and Kodansha. Like, all of those publishers, even Shonen Sunday have, which is sort of like the sister to Shonen Jump, they have like all of their stuff available in a web reader. I read it every Sunday. And so it's like how, like, why can you not keep up with this? And it makes me wonder, like, are like like the big two aren't the big two anymore. They're like the original two more now than the big ones.
It's really tough out there. I do have an interesting story related to this. So Jack issued the issue 1-2 campaign that was successful. So the second campaign I ran, the reason it was successful is because we got notoriety on social media again for a little bit. It wasn't this massive notoriety, mind you. It was just, a couple hundred people were now aware of our work. And one of those couple hundred people were a small publisher called Wicked Publishing. And they contacted me. My issue number 1, that campaign was just for digital. It was just so I can make issue 2, just digital and just line art. That's all I was trying to run it for and get it paid. And they came and they're like, we want to publish you. And so, that was a whole thing. Dealing with a publisher, a smaller publisher in particular, I appreciated. But the without physical, Jack Irons would have been dead around then.
Really?
Because that audience is so used to physical issues, these collectors, these comic readers who go into their shops and buy 5-10 issues of Marvel or DC or a mix of both, and then walk out weekly. They are used to that physical. It's a nice thing to have. I'm a physical comic reader,
same.
and manga reader. I like my big collected manga, and I like my my physical issues. I just completed Sergio Aragones's Gru Volume 2, so the big Unlimited series, that collection. That was fun and enjoyable, and I need an uplift like Gru. But it's an interesting thing that I think even in the Japanese market, they still probably are doing better with their physical issues than their digital.
Well, and the indie scene is still super big there too.
Yeah.
It's way bigger in proportion than it is to the United States. I mean, they literally have a whole market, Comiket, which I believe either just happened or is happening soon. Like that's literally just for like doujinshi, which is basically their version of indie creators. Like they have a whole convention like just for that. Like that's the whole purpose. Like
they've got a different bit to it too, where they view. At least the bigger publishers there, at least used to. I don't know how they were slightly less rigid about their IP law, and a lot of early mangaka broke in through doujinshi, doing fan fiction basically.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and and that's not something we get here as much. You
Mhm.
don't see somebody writing Superman fan fiction for a good amount of time, then doing
Mhm.
Superman. It's just not
Mhm.
something that happens. It's somebody who usually does the grind in some indie publisher, Dark Horse or Image
Mhm.
primarily, but Boom now and Dynamite and a couple
Right.
others, um,
The other th-
or Heavy Metal too.
yeah, yeah.
There's quite a few. Aftershock, Mad Cave. There's a lot,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
they you have to do
The heavy
the
work
minor league,
yourself.
right?
Yeah, yeah. You have
You
to do
got to
the
do the
heavy lift.
minor league circuit, and again, yeah, you have to find a way into that minor league as well
Mhm.
yourself, instead of just showing up at, like you said, a convention with your work.
Well, the other big difference that I've noticed, so in manga, we have a ton of contests every single
Yes,
year, and in the United
yes,
States, we don't have that. Like Shonen Jump and Tezuka just did a contest. What was it last year? Yeah, because I entered my own
we entered
manga
that.
into it.
Yep,
Yeah, so they had
we
they
entered
had.
too.
Yep, and then you have the silent manga edition. That's twice a year.
Yep.
You have Kyoto, Kumamoto. Like you have all of these different contests every single year to find that talent. And in fact, if I remember correctly, Shonen Jump they made like a mini manga about getting published through them, or like some of their publishers' history. And one of the things that I don't know if it's like a for sure requirement, because again, there's a translation issue. My Japanese is not the best, but my understanding is that they almost require or strongly encourage a contest win if you want to be published with them. And it's like, how can I enter these contests when I don't speak Japanese yet? And so finding an international contest is so hard to do. There's really not that many of them,
Oh.
and yeah, which is a bummer. At least.
For the U.S. market, it's really tough. The only one I could pop off the top of my head is Mad Cave does one. Their
Mhm.
Mad Cave talent search once a year. And the thing that they also don't tell you, which bugs the hell out of me, a lot of these indie publishers in the U.S. have their submissions open, but I would put quotations around open.
Yeah.
It's very rare they even take a look at your
It's just
work anymore.
that's what the slush pile is
You
for.
use Yeah, and then that's the thing. So they aren't interested in new talent out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Again, I spent 3 years grinding at that, nothing basically.
Yep.
It took a tiny publisher out of California seeing that I had something cool and wanting to do that, and they came to me. And I think
Mm.
that's more how the U.S. market works these days,
Yeah, yeah.
is that you have some kind of writing background or some kind of artistry background, and you meet somebody at a con, or you somehow cross paths with somebody, and then they allow a door to open.
It's almost
And that's
chance. Yeah. And
Yeah, and whereas, contests, they are
mhm.
open.
Right.
You might not win, but you're going to be looked at.
Well,
That's something.
the other thing is that a lot of people are really rural. Like, for example, right at the moment, I'm living here in South
Yes.
Dakota. We have one
Yep.
convention every year. That's it. As far as I'm aware, there's only one, and it's in the city that I live in, and I couldn't go this weekend because I had to work. So, like, the one convention in my whole state for the whole year, I couldn't even go to. And if I wanted to travel to, like, the nearest cons, it would probably be Ocon and Omaha, or Minneapolis, or C2E2, or Chicago Comic Con. Like, those are going to be the nearest ones, and all of those are a decent drive away. Like, I think the closest one's 5 hours. That's a big drive to go to those cons. Like,
Right.
people, creators, we don't have the money. We don't have the money to table, for one. Like, with the pandemic, everything was closed down, and I'm sorry, like, virtual cons suck. Like, especially if you're on the artist alley side, they weren't the same. It's harder. And so being able to network on social media, being able to talk about your work, being able to self promote, I think especially in the last year or two has become so much more critical, in being able to know how to talk about your work. A lot of creators are they're really really isolated from
Oh,
from what they want. And so being able to access that internet is really helpful. But even then, there's a lot of creators that don't have internet. Like when I was interning with Tokyo Pop out in 2018, I had internet when I was at work, But when I went home back to the hostel I was living in, I did not. And so any work that I wanted to try to do during that time was very, very hard to do. Not to mention, I was doing my internship during the day, and then I was bartending at night, and then I still had to find time to try to make my comic in the middle. And so, like, my comic attempt that I started just completely died. I was not ready for it. And then even now, like, having student loans, I have to do my student loans, and then I have to make sure I make the money for that and basic living. And then I have to, working with my creators, my editor, I'm hoping to work with a translator soon so that I can enter Jump Rookie with my manga. Like, it's so much work that you have to do, especially if you're by yourself. And so when you're looking for a team, I know you seem to have kind of found your team by miracle status. So I'm kind of wondering, do you have any like advice for finding your team? Like, for example, like Global Comics, we just launched the talent marketplace where you can make listings and make listings looking for work or looking for a team. Did you find that you were able to, like you said, you use Craigslist, right? So, wow, I can't talk now. You said that you used Craigslist.
No, I did.
So what avenues would you suggest if people are looking for a team or a group? Like, is there something that you think might work better? Is it just typical networking? Is it going out and finding people manually? What would you suggest to those people who know they can't do it by themselves? Where can you even start networking?
So, again, I did that one, just shot in the dark, and was blessed. And then that one allowed me to take advantage of others. Again, we had that the letterer find us off of Reddit who wanted to actually do good lettering. And then from there, when I was running that second campaign that also found the publisher, we found a colorist who saw page 3 of that and had to color it, and I just adored it. And so I asked him, hey, do you want to work on this? What's your price? And so we added that as a stretch goal of the campaign. We ran our first successful campaign was probably the loosest campaign run in comics. I don't know how it worked, but it did. So
wow.
Again, the publisher part of our what worked out for us. Again, I didn't plan it, budget it for physical anything or for colors or any of that.
Right.
They wanted to pay for the physical editions and the shipping and all that as kind of the entry bonus, right? And so that's why that happened. And the colors found us, and I was able to do a stretch goal, and people saw the colors and loved it. So a lot of the collaborators I've worked with have found me. But I've also, during that campaign, so other stretch goals, and we hit like 6. The last 5 were pinups, right? And so as I was networking, I'd see artists I wanted to work with. I love their work. And so I would ask them, do you want to do something for us? How much would it cost? And what I did also with that one is I tried to pair artists from all over the place into different pieces. So, I'd have a penciler do one thing from some place, and then a colorist from another place, and an inker from another one. Because I just was meeting artist after artist that I really liked, and I wanted to boost them and allow them to network with each other if they liked what they did, and just give them that extra little platform. And again, that was part of that being that conduit, allowing the positive energy we were receiving to wave out, and hopefully build again some footing for people. That's the number one thing that keeps me on social media is that, no matter how nasty it can get at places and how hard I work to curate that bit out of it, that it's a place where people can find each other to do this work and to find work they love and to share their own work. That's all I really want out of my social media presence. And if I'm able to do the same, wonderful. That's kind of, so your best bet is really, there's so many talents, particularly on Twitter. I'm used to it. I go to, we have Portfolio Day. I love Portfolio Day. I go through those, and usually when I click on one artist and follow them that I loved,
it's like a
I'll
train.
go down, and it was Portfolio Day. Exactly.
Yep.
And I find another and another and another, and I just find a whole wave of talents I find beautiful, and I would love to work with if I got the chance.
Yeah.
And so that's one way to do it. And then just don't be afraid to. The worst you're going to get is no, I'm not interested. Most of the time, I mean, you might get a jerk, and then you don't want to work with them anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'll find that out right away, and
Uh-huh.
it's not a big deal. I've been lucky; I haven't found any jerks, but that I haven't tried to work with any jerks.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a pretty decent judge of people most of the time.
Man,
I
I
made
need
one
that.
really
Need
cruddy
you,
mistake.
need you to teach me how to
But
do that. I've had my fair share of, oh, like we're gonna work together, and I test it, and then like within a few days, like it just completely falls apart. But I think that that's critical for people. I don't want to say like I want people to go through experiences that are hard for them or stressful for them, but I think also like a lot of people fear going through negative experiences. They fear finding a bad person, or they fear being scammed, which, let's be honest, it happens. Like writers scam artists and artists scam writers. Like it's just an unfortunate reality that we live in a world that it's kind of easy to take advantage of people no matter what side you're standing on. And you kind of have to trust people on one hand, but you also don't want to turn into this like really negative, bitter person because, oh, well, so and so scammed me, so now I'm only going to do this way. I'm only going to do money this way. I'm only going to do money that way. It's super easy to become negative, especially with some of the things going on in the comic industry right now. It's super easy for any conversation to turn super toxic, super fast, and it's super stressful. I'm going to be honest. Like how
the
can
number one thing is just to make sure that whoever you're collaborating with has a similar goal to you. That's the point. And most of the time, it should be to get this work done. That's
Right.
the bare minimum. If you both have that goal and you both allow the room for that goal to happen, again, rigidity is my enemy. I think there's places that you need to be rigid, but most of the time that people think they need to be really rigid about something, there could be movement, and that movement would actually allow that something to happen in a way that maybe wasn't exactly what they wanted, but is workable.
Right. Yeah.
that allows the
Exactly.
thing to progress. And
Yeah.
that's the big one, as I've always found. And I've also found if people like you, and like what you're doing, and you are good with payments, they will do the work. Most of the dang time, they want their money, and they want to share in what you're doing.
Right.
And if you can create an environment that's like that, then you won at least half the battle. The other half, again, is judging character, and that's tough.
Yeah.
But
Neil Gaiman made a
but
really good.
no, go for it. I
Oh
like
no,
Gaiman.
I'm sorry. Give it up to you. Sorry. So Neil Gaiman made a perfect like a not analogy but like a statement here. So he said you only need three things to work. Well, there's three things, that as far as like how you work with people. Three skills. You either need to be on time, you need to be pleasant to work with, and you need to be good at your job. He's like, and you don't even need all three. You just need to be two of them. Like people like are willing to work with you, if you're a little like if you're behind, if you're always pleasant and the work you do is always really good. Usually, it's kind of different in comics because pipelines are so important. If you're on time and you're pleasant to work with, it's okay if your work maybe is not necessarily quite as good as long as you're good to work with. And then if you're good to work with, and you're always on time, or sorry, if your artwork is really good and you're always on time, they may be willing to deal with you if you don't have necessarily the best etiquette or social skills. So you don't even need to have like all three of them. You just need to be able to like work with people and also like acknowledge your flaws. Like, oh my goodness, getting critique sometimes with artists is like a two-way street. Like either they're gonna love getting feedback, or they're gonna absolutely like go bananas and, and like just tear the whole world apart. Cause like, how dare you give me critique? How dare you give me feedback? So on that note, did you have any campaigns where you got negative feedback, or constructive feedback, and how did you approach taking this information that on one hand is kind of painful to hear, because it means that someone is suggesting or insinuating that what you did wasn't the best work you could have done. How did you go about taking that information and turning it into something that is really helpful? Like, how did you take that and make your work better? And did you ever struggle with sort of like maybe any fears or worries of like inferiority or being less than?
First off, on that, any engagement is relatively priceless.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it goes. It's a gift that cannot be taken. So that's something, it's not something you can just grab and suddenly you have engagement. It's not how it works. So from that basis alone, I look at any kind of interaction as how can I make this something positive, as you're asking. So for that, I've found only one occurrence that was so negative that I was willing to bury all of my work because of it, and it wasn't based on the work; it was based in association with someone.
Mm.
Um, but otherwise, no. I mean, again, negative feedback usually comes from a place of, unless it's coming from obvious like bullying or trying to push you out of a space or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's usually coming from, I liked what you did in some form, some capacity. I want it to be better, even if you're giving them
Mm-hmm.
crud about it, right?
Right.
I always approach that feedback like that, and it's really easy to just use business talk like, "Thank you for your feedback. We'll take that
Mm-hmm.
into
Mm-hmm.
consideration." Done.
Yeah.
Right, and there's nothing there. And so that's always been kind of where I come from. Can it be used positively, and if not, can I end the interaction positively?
Mm-hmm.
And that's carried me through this far. But again, not everybody has that ability, and some people love that. Some people can feed right off of it and then just start fighting back, and that works great for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Right.
know if that's great
Yeah.
for the space overall,
I think
personally,
it
but it
depends,
works if it.
really. It really
Yep.
depends. I think if it's like a really, really, especially like harsh critique, you know, you always want to reply like there's such a thing as being brutal with grace. Like you can level at someone, but as we mentioned earlier, you always have that risk of something coming back to bite you later. Even if like you were completely justified in what you said, there's always a possibility that society may change. What's okay to say, what's not okay to say. Society may take something out of context that you said or not know the entire context and then try to use it against you later. There are so many possible ways that even if you're justified in retaliating or saying something back to them, especially if it's a really, really nasty comment, then it's usually, as you mentioned, it's just better just to stay professional all the time, stay cool, stay collected. Because I mean, if anything, then and it feels really good to like swipe up at somebody. Like it really does feel good on some days. But in the long run, is it really worth it? Does it benefit you to actually to do that to someone? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you got to keep your eyes on the prize. Again, that's part of the
Mhm.
tenacity, part of being stubborn, is you don't waver in your conviction for a small now victory.
Mhm.
You keep that conviction purely for the dream, for
Right.
what you're trying to do, and that's something I haven't taken my that's carried me through quite far. Is that I've never felt the need to. I'm not. I try to be exceedingly humble as much as I can because there's always something to learn from
Mhm.
everyone, even people where that lesson will be exceedingly negative.
Right.
Um, but it's how you carry that lesson, how you interact with it, that allows it to be integrated or to really kick your ass at the end of the day.
Right.
And
Mhm.
uh, some people are more fragile than others. Again, I've mentioned many times in this already, is this work ends up being very close to a lot of people's hearts, and
Mhm.
so it's very easy to, especially when it's it's people who've never met, never interacted. It's very, and it's through text. It's
Mhm.
very easy to not have context, not have any concept of where the person commenting is coming from, not have
Mhm.
any concept of how they actually felt about your work or how it actually hit them, because you weren't there, you weren't them doing that,
Right.
reading it.
And you're not
And
them.
so, yep, exactly. And so it's really important for any sort of mental fortitude with this massive cacophony that is comics, and particularly the indie scene, to again keep your head in the game, and
Mhm.
not to let yourself become a victim to somebody else based on
Yes.
your own work. Don't let your work
Mhm.
become a victimizer. Let it be something that carries you and lifts you up. And
Mhm.
if you can, lifts other people up. That's
Right.
that's that's the beauty of it. If you can.
Mhm. And this connection of, or this idea of putting like all of your self-worth on the work that you do. I think a lot of people really struggle to separate like, hey, hey, I'm a comic creator, and then like they put out this work that they worked super hard on. It took them years, and then like it may not be received in the way that some people want, and they'll take that personally. And it's definitely something you have to watch out for. Like, your worth is not tied to how your work does. Your work is different from you. It feels super personal because we love what we do. As we've been talking about all along through this interview, we're so personal with our work. We want to do really well. We want to succeed with our work. It's just a very personal thing to create something, especially from our own experiences. And then it almost feels like if it doesn't do well, that it's a rejection of our own experiences. It's a rejection of stuff that we hold dear or important to us. And so if your campaign doesn't succeed, it's not a personal rejection of you. And also it may be that your dream isn't dead, it's just not in season. It may just not be the right time. It may just, you need to keep working on it, keep, adjust, learn, adjust, and, learn, analyze, adjust. Learn, analyze, adjust. Like, you just got to go through that process of, breaking it down, figuring out why it didn't work. Like, instead of taking it so personally, like, break it down, figure out why it didn't work. Write notes if you have to. I know so many people that just don't want to sit down and, like, write stuff out. Like, why did it not work? Like, I don't know if you watch your analytics on Global Comics, but I watch mine all the time. When I first launched mine, I was very particular in watching what days did really well. Because I had a couple days where I released pages right in a row, and I wanted to see, okay, like, how is this going to affect it? And then, like, does it affect how many pages I put out? Like, now that I'm a staff member, sometimes, like, we'll do research, seeing, like, is there a pattern that would be the most successful so we can let our creators know, what they can do, what they can't do. But all of that's just part of analyzing, even us as a company, analyzing what we're doing incorrectly or something that could be improved upon, so that we give a better experience to the creators that we have. And I feel like if a lot more people, especially indie creators, even just knew how to do those things, they would have a far better chance of being successful, which, kind of leaning back to the beginning of this interview, is why I'm even starting this series, is to educate people on how they can be better. It's just a really stressful thing to have to sit down and be like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Because it's almost like you're insulting yourself when you ask, what am I doing wrong? Like, we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to have to think about those things. So I guess moving forward now, we've kind of talked about like IronVerse, how you got started, the pitfalls that you've had along the way. And then like how creators could improve with their crowdfunding. One thing we didn't talk about a lot more is you've mentioned that there are multiple books. Have you noticed? Well, when I was interning at a publisher, I learned that usually the reason why publishers tend to turn away creators with a larger book series is that it's considered a higher risk because there are more books. Usually with each book you have less sales as far as volume is concerned. Usually. Not always the case, obviously. Sometimes the series can take off like mid-series. So my question would be, do you find that there's a correlation or a worry, or maybe something that you've actually seen, where books tend to do less well the longer the series runs? Is that something that you're worried about as far as like the length of the book becoming an issue?
As you mentioned, in the indie scene, a lot of people, and even manga, usually it's a one-shot trial idea, and they actually, they publicly test it, and if it works, then they give the creator more free reign, and they curate it. They have very strong editorial there. That's another thing that's missing here, is strong editorial. It's for us, this is, again, I'm going to do this until I am unable to. That's never going to change, whatever the results are. So that, that gives me hope and faith in it no matter what. And having the structure and how IronVerse is constructed, it gives me more faith in that way too. It's just I take it very seriously. Again, it's very personal to me, and it's given a lot of people work, and that's important to me. It's allowed people to do their own series. It's inspired another company. It's done a lot of really cool stuff, and so that matters to me. But the fear of failure, you only fail when you give up, and it's again it's in the 3 mission statements in issue number 1. Again, it's that tenacity will get you through anything. If I don't give up, I can't lose.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But
more directly on the series, we've grown readership each release, which is wonderful.
That's like the opposite. That's wonderful.
Yes, but nonetheless, this is our longest hiatus. So issue number 4 is going to give us the most valuable data we've probably had since we originally launched. So I'm really excited for that, and yeah, of course I'm terrified. I've taken quite a few losses.
Right.
And this year in particular had a lot of personal losses, and that the footing under me is less secure than previous works. And so yeah, it's there's fear there, but it's not like, again, my self-worth, me as a person, it's not built into it. I don't fail. The work fails, and the work can always be improved or redone or redid. Me, a little bit different. So it's I'm a work in progress. It's always going to be growth. Exactly. It's always going to be growth and learning and new experiences as long as I'm able to have them. And I found footing in other work. A lot, as we said, most comic creators, and this is numerically, they do not do comics for a living. Not even close.
Right.
Not like it's a very small percentage. And so you got to find that other avenue too that gives you some kind of strength, some kind of a footing in yourself as well, so that you have this confidence behind you to be able to fail in this. Comics is not. It's as much as especially the mainstream comic industry likes to put forward, it's not this big glamorous work. It's very hard, often very dirty, very grungy, and low paying.
It's stressful. It's like, especially, like if you have a team, like me personally, I can't even imagine managing a team, keeping the pipeline moving, making sure you're tracking everybody so you know who's doing what, when, where, why, how, deadlines. Like, that's why for me, like, I just do everything by myself as much as I can. And now that I've got a publisher who's heard my pitch and they're interested, like, kind of doing a trial run right now, figuring out, okay, well, like, how is this going to work? What are we going to do? It's a very stressful process. And so then you add on to that, it's like you are your own, like, artist, you're marketing agent. Unless you hire people for this, you do everything by yourself. And so adding on the stress of having to figure out how to do a campaign or like multiple campaigns over the course of like your whole series is just incredibly stressful, and just completely overwhelming, especially if you've never done it before. I know every time I've gone to sit down to think about doing my own crowdfunding, I get super stressed. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to do that next year and next year and the next year. And suddenly, like, next year or someday. I swear someday is the most dangerous word in the entire dictionary, because someday isn't a deadline. Someday doesn't have a date. Someday is just, that's it. It's just someday. And so I really...
concept. Yes. So my first campaign, again, the loosest thing ever run. I literally dived headfirst, and I made nearly every mistake in setting up the campaign that you could. But I had that basis. Well, it's just digital, right? So I'm not going to have to ship anything. I'm not going to have to do any of that. And then I lucked out on many other factors that were unforeseen, things I did not plan for, things I had no idea could occur. That's what allowed this to exist. On subsequent campaigns, which is the only other real successful one, was issue number 3's. we ran, I believe, Cactus Coyote before issue number 3. We ran for to do a more Western release of it, which we've actually been working on in the background. We never stopped working on it. That did not take off. It did not hit the same demographic that Jack did, even though it involves very similar themes in the same universe and fun character
Yeah,
designs,
it
great
seems very
ideas.
similar. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the work for it.
Yeah, and so it's been interesting. We released that as a free to read manga. We got a good amount of views during the Tezuka manga contest, which was nice. That was good to show that it's actually was at least interesting enough to be looked at. We were like number 7 for like the first couple weeks, which was really cool.
Oh, wonderful.
But yeah, so that got a lot of eyes on it and showed that there is potential there. It's just not for the same audience that we already had with Jack, and I get that. It's a different take, even though if you're reading them coincide, it's not that different of a take of the concepts that are being explored and such. It's very similar, and not in a way that it's derivative. It's these are big concepts with a lot of facets to them,
right?
And it explores those similar concepts with different angles. It's a different
right.
existence looking at the same things, and that's what I love about what we're doing. But it's if you. So I failed enough. Again, about half of what we've done has failed, quote unquote failed. Didn't reach budget, so no work came out of it. And in Cactus Coyote, we were actually putting money towards pages, so that's continued.
Okay.
In fact, hopefully we have something coming out with those pages. We're almost done with the full length comic,
Nice.
which is kind of cool. But he's written so much. He was a screenwriter, so he's just ground out. There's 20 arcs, and he's almost done with the whole series.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to get that moving, getting traction. So we'll see how that goes. But the point is, you've got again, tenacity, but not rigidity. If you're rigid, you're going to make the same mistakes again and again. If you adapt, you're going to be good. And then failures will hurt. The hardcover one, it was rough on me because we were so close, and we've issue number 3 launched right before the pandemic. And then was gonna finish and got you got some traction at the beginning, as they do, but then the middle it was just dead because everybody was out of work, nobody had anything, and then we finished. We got the last 6K, so more than half the final day.
Wow.
That was a roller coaster, and not expected. I saw the wonderful community that we had built together actually come together and boost the hell out of it, trying to get it, because they wanted that work, and that was wonderful to see. Just a beautiful little thing that very rarely on social media you'll see something like that. It's really nice to see.
What a time to go viral.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing that of course blew it out of the water was when Miura passed. I'd never seen a community come together like that. It was beautiful. I did a YouTube video on it because I was just so blown away with the resonance that his work had hit, how deep it had hit so many people. It was just wonderful to see. But it's one of those things. And then for the hardcover, I was streaming. I was like, you know what? There's a chance, right? There's a chance something like this will happen. And I wanted to. We were trying a new platform. We were trying to reach a new audience, right? And we did reach people, but we didn't fund, so we didn't get to follow through on that, and that hurts. They do hurt. I can't say that even with all my stubbornness and such, that it doesn't hurt when you're not able to do the work you want to do.
Right.
It's just how it goes, and that applies to all kinds of different things in comics, but that one's a big one. And so yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of getting hurt. That's how you're gonna get tougher and learn. But it's you're gonna find some pain along the way. Art tends to do that, especially if you're trying to get it to people and not just do it for yourself. If you're doing it for yourself, then wonderful. Just keep doing it for yourself. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're able to. But if you're trying to make it a business, you're trying to get people work, you're trying to grow the ideas and share them with the most amount of people possible, there's going to be a lot of pain in there because there's a lot of people involved. Well, it's just how it goes.
And that learning curve is just like absolutely massive. So speaking of working with people and like helping them, you do stream on Twitch, and I know that you're very active on other social media. So my question would be, have you noticed, like, you've got Reddit, you've got Twitch, you've got YouTube, your Twitter, like you have so many different avenues that you use to interact with people on. Do you think that I didn't ask you, do you go to conventions? Is that something else? Like, what do you do as far as like, what are your favorite ways to stay active with people? On in any number of ways that you use. Like, so what are your favorite options? Are there any that you prefer? Any that you would like to do more? Because networking with people, connecting with people as we've been talking about, is so critically important to what we do. What suggestions, like, what's your favorite? And then what suggestions would you have with people who are brand new to this, just starting to network, just starting to build their communities? What would you suggest to them, and what are your favorite ways that you already do to kind of build your network and build community?
So you'll find a whole segment of the comics community that says YouTube is the only way.
It's not.
I find that it does not only is it not the only way, it doesn't work for most people. You have to be very gregarious. You have to be very outgoing. You have to be entertaining.
Yeah.
I do YouTube and streaming and stuff because I like it. It provides me a platform to interact with the community if they so want to, and it's
Same.
just it's something I enjoy, and it's putting content down. I appreciate that. It keeps the ideas alive in one
Yes.
form or another. Keep the flame going when I can't pay for art, can't produce things, right? I've seen some communities that do really good on Patreon. That would be the dream if you could get monthly influx without having to do the ups and downs of campaigns. That's the best, and you can do the same thing through Global Comics, which is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Not through the exact same amount of posting and sharing and stuff, but you do have that monthly subscription base, which is incredible. I get a little bit through there too, and it's very helpful.
Oh, it's great. And then you also, like, we have comments on
Yes.
pages now. We have forums
Yes.
for like feedback, and we're gonna hopefully be expanding that really soon with more options to create areas where people can engage more. So just kind of speaking on Global Comics, that's something that we've identified is something that we definitely need to improve upon, so that we have more ability for our creators and the readers to actually engage with the creators. So many creators, they don't engage with their readers enough. And so we're like, well, what is not working on our platform, and how can we fix that? And then it's the same with other platforms. It's figuring out like what platform works best for you, like the way that you communicate as a person, and then just doing it. Some people, they just like posting work in progress shots, or they like doing behind the scenes stuff. So Patreon might work for you if you like showing people the work as you're doing, and you have to like communicate one-on-one with people. Then like Twitch or YouTube, as far as streaming, might work best for you. Like I YouTube stream as well, just because like I need that interaction with people, and I feel like if I can get the engagement with that person, if I can get to talking with them, dude, I can convert them. Like that's one of the things that I feel like I do better. And if you're more of like, oh, you're a social media person, as far as like really quick one and dones, like you just want quick conversations, and maybe something like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram might work better for you. So I didn't mean to like hijack or answer your question for you, but just some of the things I've been thinking about.
No, yeah. Again, I do YouTube for that. It's a grind.
It is.
Particularly, there's certain ways to do it that would gather. Again, we talked about the kind of the more aggressive forms of marketing that are out there that are hidden, not quite as marketing. They're hidden as usually fighting something.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That's what I've seen the biggest. Like if you're going for YouTube to promote your comic, that is the angle that seems to be the most consistent. If you're entertaining about it, usually pure cruelty it just doesn't work. You have to be entertaining about that. But the biggest interactions for me usually come during campaigns, when there's a hype and there's people sharing your work and you're reaching new people and you're meeting them and you're talking to them. Twitter again has been my biggest one. It's the easiest one because it's quick, and I can speak through text usually more eloquently. When I started out, though, the YouTube shows worked very well, because not only are you networking with whoever you're talking to, like we're doing right now, but you can reach their audience. So that's a big one. In fact, that's become a staple for crowdfunding, particularly the more indie end of it. Unless I've got a book that's going to be published by Dark Horse, but I still need to fund it, kind of thing. Like that, you get a little bit more passive going. So reaching an audience is the toughest bit, and then getting that audience to pull the trigger is even tougher. And for comics, crowdfunding, if you're reaching people who are already used to the crowdfunding scene, it's a little bit easier. But if you're trying to reach comic fans who are used to paying, they used to pay, $2.50, $1.10, something like that, and you're trying to sell them $25 shipping, all of that.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it's possible to begin
Yeah.
with. Like, I'm very stoked that people believe in that. But usually, what they're doing that makes them pull the trigger is they are supporting you as an artist. Your work is the proof that they supported you and that you can do work. And
Exactly.
so it's very important to make the personal connections and not be manipulative about it and not being manipulated by those connections. And that can be very
Yes.
tough too, especially a lot of artists, again, we spoke, socially awkward. It's not usually what they're trying to do. Their work's close to their heart, so that interaction can go sour very quickly.
Yes.
But it you gotta have fun. That's what I've heard from almost every successful creator. Whether they're on one type of more aggressive marketing or they're more passive, or whatever, is you have to present fun. You have to be something people want to interact with and be part of, and that's very tough to do if you're not again, gregarious. I'll use that word again. If you're not able to be a bigger personality than maybe you actually are. So where I found my footing to do that is through trying to be kind and boosting and being very, very active and looking for things that need assistance that look good. That's what I've been able to do, and that's how I found new followers, found new artists to interact with, found places, and the place to do that for me has been Twitter. That's the number one thing for me. But I've had Facebook that didn't do much. Again, tried Reddit. The 2 times it worked, once found that letterer, or that letterer found us, and then the second time was when Global Comics posted us, and we blew the hell up on the sci-fi threads. That
My
was wonderful. It
goodness.
was like a week. It's like a week that did it. It still keeps us up in the top of the analytics for the last year or whatever.
I'm pretty sure you still are. Like, I know last year, I believe you were number 1 last year. And then
we were.
I think this year, if you're not number 1, you're definitely in the top 3, I believe. I'd have to for sure go double check. But you know, like I do keep track of that, and it's fascinating to see and kind of prove to people that you don't have to like post your comic and then like leave it and think that it's done, it's over with, especially if it doesn't perform right away. And in all honesty, Global Comics is still a newer platform. It's not like, it doesn't have this huge established audience that like Webtoons or Tapas or like, it doesn't have that, but we're still able to get these huge numbers of views with people who actually go out and they do the work and they do the networking, and we work together with the creators to say, hey, we want to help you out. So like, it's possible to get that stuff. So that's why like people are like, oh, well, I'm not getting enough views on things, like what's wrong? And I'm like, well, like, let's go over it. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? But that's why I wanted to do this interview with you, is because it's such a nuanced topic to talk about marketing yourself, doing these campaigns, because they can go all sorts of ways. So I guess it could go good.
Factor we haven't really spoken about that I'd like to put is there is a lot of luck involved. I think that's been implied with what I've been speaking. A lot of lucky chance encounters per se, but it really is. And you have to keep that in the back of your mind, no matter what you're doing in art. Again, if you're trying to market it and get it out there and the business end of it running, it's trying to catch lightning in a bottle. There's no other way to say it. I had no idea that posting on Reddit would work. I was just stoked that he did it, and then I kept seeing how big it was getting. And I was like, okay, I better be in there just to interact. And having one of the key parts is I had free accessibility to the IP. A lot of people like really want to charge quite a bit for digital, or they want to put it behind a paywall directly as a new IP, things like that. And there's some sacrifices you have to make. Your IP could be worth millions of dollars and decades of amazing work being produced.
Mm-hmm.
But if nobody's going to look at it, then
Or
it's not going to
can.
go anywhere. Yeah, or
Yeah.
can, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And readers, comic readers, I'm going to use the word, I use it in almost every interview I have. It's a massive cacophony. There's so much noise out there of different works that if they have to pay to go look at it, and you haven't given them a really good reason to do so,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to go look at something that is free,
You haven't set
and
that
they're
hook
going to move
yet.
on
You
with their
need to
day.
set that hook. That's why, like, that's one of the biggest things that we've been thinking about with our creators is there's a lot of creators that will give like they'll just have like the first 5 pages for free and then charge the rest. But what they don't realize is the first 3 pages are exteriors, and so then they only get 2 pages of actual content. And I don't think 2 pages of actual content is enough. Like just the cover and 2 pages of interior just is not enough to decide that. So like that's one thing that I've done. Like my first couple chapters, are probably, I have to talk with this publisher if this deal goes through, is going to be free because that's such a valuable thing. Is like give them something to get excited about. Like if you just give them 2 pages, 2 pages is really hard to get excited about. Other than just like a cover, especially if the cover art doesn't match the interiors. Like that's a super misleading
Yeah,
thing.
that
That's kind of.
that bait and switch we've avoided.
Mm-hmm.
I've had plenty of people do pinups instead of variant covers because of that. And even when we ended up pulling the trigger of variant covers to coincide with publishers' desires for reprints, I stuck with Maxi. I did not
Mm-hmm.
want be misleading, and his work is good enough. I'm not that bait and switch is a big turnoff for a lot of comic
Yeah.
fans. Period.
Same.
Unless they're collectors and they're just buying the physical and they
Yeah, like a
already have like
variant.
the reader copy, yeah, and then the regular and all of that. That's fine. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you have for your main release, if you have a different cover artist than what's in the interior, then you've got this bit of dishonesty. No matter how good that cover is and
Mm-hmm.
how cool somebody might want a poster of it or something,
Mm-hmm.
once they get into the actual work, the story that's being told, it can be pretty dissuading. It can
Yeah.
really make them not want to get the next one,
I've had quite a
and
few
that's
like that where I'm like, oh my god, like I love this cover art. Like I'm like, oh my god, like if this is the interior, I'm so excited about it. And then I go to open it and it's a completely different style. Like there's one and like it's in color and it's absolutely gorgeous work. And then inside it's like, oh, it's black and white, which is normal in manga, but it's a completely different style. And so it's like I don't mind that, it's I don't want to say there's like a perception of quality, but it's just like it's a completely different style. And it's like I don't mind, but if I wish I could see like the original artist or the person who's doing it to at least have it be similar. It's not exact, but at least have it be similar or relevant. Like your cover should act as a preview for what's
yeah,
inside, and shouldn't be this
yep.
misleading thing of, oh hey, like here's this beautiful great artwork, like that's what's going to be inside. It's super misleading. And once you, especially if it's for your first book, that kind of creates a sort of like negative first impression that what you're doing, are you going to keep misleading people? Are you going to like keep being dishonest? Like are you like it would make honestly me hard to trust a new release and be like, oh, are they just doing the same thing? Because I remember last time I was disappointed. So but that's most definitely a thing. So.
Yeah, no, that
Mhm.
that honest communication, that's a big one too. Is be open and honest, and just trust the process as best as you can. And
Mhm.
that's part of it, even down to the work, is that the cover is communicating your style. It's what's supposed to be in there. And so if you're communicating a different style than in the book, yeah, you pull the bait and switch. And if you're gonna do illusion magic, it's got to be fun. And that bait and switch usually is not fun.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so we've kind of talked about the beginning of Jack Irons, how that process got started. We've talked about how you've kind of gone through starting your campaigns, figuring them out, having quote failures and bumps along the way, happy accidents, miracles, that sort of thing. Like just being in the right place, the right time, and luck. And you were right. Like I'm so glad you brought that up. That luck is like most definitely a part of this process that no one really likes talking about, but it most definitely is part of the process. So once you've finished a campaign, whether it's successful or not, how soon or how do you even get ready for the next one, or even how soon do you even think about it? Like do you have some downtime before you look at your next campaign, or are you like rearing ready to go, you're on that high, whether it's good or bad, like you're just ready to go for the next one?
ready to go for the next one, but we wait till it's released and everybody has it in hand, just so that that faith is there, and that proof's there, and that we're not just taking money and then not delivering and then asking for more money.
Right.
So that I find is really important. I think you really should deliver what you're doing before you go to the next one. But in terms of planning and concept, myself, I usually am one script ahead. A lot of people like to be many. Again, dollar coins is 20 arcs ahead.
Smart.
I'm one issue. One issue because I like to feel out. I want the manifestation, the work, to be a representation of what it needed to be at the time it's going to come out. So issue number 1, for instance, it was strongly based on my original graphic novel script from way back when, but it was adapted. Again, when Maxie puts his feedback into it and actually does the line art, I rewrite to the line art not quite a bit, but enough. I adjust so that it flows better, so that the concepts that he brings in are represented, and so that it hopefully is a more cohesive piece than if I had rigidly stuck to my script.
No, that's
again,
great.
I give him the script, and then he has free reign. If he wants to redo a panel, he wants to make something a double-page spread that was, 2 pages before, or he wants to condense the scene. He can do that because he's the storyteller on the visual end. I'm the narrator. Just a little bit
interesting way to see it. Yeah, no, that's great, because a lot of writers can get very obtuse as far as how they interact with their artists. And a lot of artists, like, I know me personally, when I find a writer that's very loose and in terms of, like, they're willing to give me that freedom, on one hand it's liberating, but on the other hand it's extremely frustrating, because it's like, oh well, now I have to do all this extra lifting. So maybe I'm more of a lazy artist, but it's really interesting to hear you say that. But I wish more writers would be a little more open to working with their artists, because, and this is interesting between comics and manga. So in manga, the mangaka or the writer usually will create what's called a name, or name it, which is sort of like the rough draft, the layouts roughly, even if it's just stick figure drawings, if they don't draw it themselves. A lot of mangaka, they write and draw their own work, but a lot of, there's some teams, like for example Takeshi Obata, he's an artist, and if you know him, if you don't know, he drew Hikaru no Go, Death Note, Bakuman, like he did all of those things. And he worked with a writer. I mean, even One Punch Man, Murata.
Good one about that. Yep.
Yeah. Even with Murata and One Punch Man, like he worked together to create this wonderful, amazing series. And imagine if the original creator had gotten so offended that, who is this Murata person trying to tell me how to do my artwork? But he was willing to hear him out, work with him, and change some of the story and its features, what they said, to make it even better. So I really wish that more writers would be, on one hand, open to working with their artists, but also be willing to take some charge visually as to what it looks like make that process an open dialogue, rather than just like dumping the script on the artist and saying, here you go, good luck. But it seems like you actually work with Maxie to really go back and forth, figure out like what would work best. It seems like it's an actual communication versus just, oh, here you go.
Well, it's of course, it's changed. I've been working with him now 7 years. So over the time, our dialogue's changed. My issue 4 is a lot more reference driven than previous issues, because he desired that. Whereas in previous issues there was some references, some done by Dollar Coins, which he does. He calls them storyboards, but it's a name. It's very, very similar. And then sometimes he'll take those further, and then that's what our manga Cactus Coyote is that he took those storyboards and inked them and filled them out a little bit.
I'll do the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, Maxie, he's an interesting character. He doesn't usually provide me thumbnails, the rough sketches, unless he's unsure about something. If he's sure about it, then I usually get the pencils.
Ooh, like he's very confident.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? Most of the time, in fact, I don't think there's been more than 1 or 2 times where it's just like, you move the gun from his left hand to his right hand. in one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, where he didn't catch that small error. But it's never been, I need that panel redone. It's never been anything like that. Because
Amazing.
again, I trust his story pacing, his storytelling much more than I trust my own script, to be honest.
That's
My
amazing.
goal is a project manager, and to see what the collaboration can make. If I could draw, I'd be much more rigid with myself. I'd want something one way, and if I couldn't do it, I probably wouldn't do that thing and find something else. But in this case, if there's something he wants to do different, it's not usually because he couldn't do the thing I wanted. It's because he's got a better idea for the pacing, better idea for the flow, better idea for the layouts, or just a cool idea that he wants to do with the scene. And which is even better, more incredible for me, because there is a relatively strong language barrier between us. So that so we've got that extra bit too, where I mean, his English is incredible compared to my Spanish, but it I don't know. The thing I take the most pride in the work is the manifestation, the actual what comes out of it, not the parts that go into it. And so some writers, especially when they get big, you look at like a Grant Morrison script. It is incredibly detailed, just insane amounts of things. That artist better do that. That's what it feels like through the script. And then you can look at like old Stan Lee, which didn't really do much of a script. He'd say, "This is the plot, draw it, and then I'll write to it."
Just like Kirby, Dickos, do whatever you want.
Yep, exactly. And I'll just do something to it. And so I find my work somewhere in between that, where it's like I've got a focused idea of how the plot should move, and the scenes and the notes, individual notes I want to hit, but how they're played, what instrument they're played on, however that the melody that's formed out of them, the pacing, the bit, that is the artist's part of their job. It's part of what I'm paying them for.
That's so interesting.
I don't have that ability.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe because I'm an artist, I'm used to thinking about those things. Like even when I'm writing, I will, like, for example, rewriting chapter 1 with my hopeful publisher, like trying to figure out what I want the script to look like. Like they didn't get super far in my script because I gave them a pretty big script, to be fair. But they're like, hey, we want you to go over this, go over that. We just want like an elevator pitch. We just want this. We just want that. We don't want this crazy, overly detailed script. And then like my initial reaction was, well, then how are you going to know what my story is about? But then I was like, wait a minute, no, I need to like back up, slow down, and work on like the elevator pitch, which is something else I just kind of wanted to bring up really quick. Like, if you're going to be pitching your campaign to people, if you're going to be like talking about your campaign, if you're going to be self-promoting, like you got to be aware of like, how do I say this? And for anyone who doesn't know what an elevator pitch is, essentially it's basically, imagine the length of time that you have, like you and this person who can grant all of your wildest dreams, make you a complete success. You're standing in an elevator together and you have one floor to tell them about your project and sell it to them, which is what, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute tops. Like that's a really slow elevator if it's a minute. Like maybe like 30 seconds, like it's really all you get. Like how do you sell that to them in 30 seconds or less, and usually within like 3 sentences, 3 or 5 sentences, if that. Like 5 is pushing it, like 3 is even a lot. So like how do you do that? That's basically what an elevator pitch is. And I
would find mine down to a sentence. That's usually what I try to do, is so that it can be used in marketing. A reincarnated immortal cowboy seeks freedom and purpose in galactic Armageddon.
Yes! Excellent.
A lot of big terms, a lot of big ideas communicated, a lot of the drive and what's going on in the story communicated, and the flavor.
Right, yeah. And narrowing that down takes time. Like it takes practice. Like I'm still working on, I think I've got mine down to about 2 or 3 sentences. So like I'm still working on that pitch to them. But it's definitely like a process, and I mean, I've not been working my series near as long, and it's had so many. I mean, it was an animation, and then it was a painted style comic, much like George Pratt, and then it kind of became like a weird like comic. Like a comic with a manga style, but it's still read left to right, and then it became like a colored manga, and then it became a webtoon, and now it's gonna be like a black and white manga, like as authentic as I can. Like it's had so many different iterations, and so I feel like that's that tenacity bit that you were talking about. Like, you just have to sit down and be willing to work with the project. And like, I never ever ever want to promote hustle culture, because it is toxic and there is a level of unhealthy like obsession with whatever it is that you do. But at the same time, like, you have to, like, whatever your project needs, if you want this project to succeed and you want to become professional and you want to make a living, or just like get it out there, like whatever it is that your goal is, you've got to be willing to like sit down and like put in the work, and not like worry about like, oh, am I going to get lucky? Is so and so going to share my work so I get famous? Like, I don't know if you ever heard about Tsukimitron. Tsukimitron was big before, but when George Takei shared their work, oh my gosh, they exploded. They went up to like $75,000 a month on Patreon at one point. It was insane to see like their growth in like within just 2 weeks. But like, though, like that's like being hit by lightning, like you say, catching lightning in a bottle. It's so rare to have that kind of event like catapult you into success. And it's like the iceberg analogy, that like you only see like the work that's on the surface, but what you don't see is the hours and hours and hours, whether you're doing it as a team. In fact, it's even worse if it's a team, because there's so much more work that went into it. It really is just a lot of work. It's preparation, it's preparing, getting ready, and if something doesn't do well, looking at what its quote failures were, what can you work on, what can you improve, and then like sitting down and planning the next one and moving on. So on the topic, moving on. So now that we know that Jack Irons won't really be completed necessarily, maybe from your perspective it might be.
Not an end to IronVerse Comics, but deciding when to pull that trigger,
right?
That's up to everyone.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, I know we have Cactus Coyote. Are there other projects that you have in mind that we can look forward to in the future? You don't have to tell us about them, but are there more projects? I'd
love to.
Maybe for another interview. but so there are more wonderful things that we can look forward to.
We introduced Tracker, Top Predator, in issue number 3.
Right.
He has an 8-page short that I wanted to hit as a stretch goal with issue 3. That was going to be in the back of it. Mm-hmm. Didn't hit it, but
bring it back.
One of them. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've got that. We've got a few in the works. One's Stephen Hugh, the Golden Monk.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they were all metallic themed in one form or another. Tracker's technically bone themed, but it's a mineral, right?
Mm-hmm. Close enough.
So the different aspects of again, everything. There's the IronVerse Comics Earth, which is divided into four basically kingdoms is the best way to put it, but hellscapes.
Right.
5 if you count the one that the aliens carved out for humanity's kind of almost a zoo.
Yeah.
And then we've got that same. It's supposed to communicate the micro and the macro interacting. So when you look at the greater galaxy through Cactus Coyote, it's very similar, but on a galactic scale. We actually are going further than that as well, but that one takes a week. We're inching towards it because it's something that takes time to communicate if you're going to do it right.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I rushed to communicate quite a bit of it in issue 2, and some readers didn't like that as much, and some were totally cool with it. So that was one of the lessons I learned.
Same.
One of the big things that you got to do that I haven't communicated yet is that you have to savor your small victories. Little things, getting a page done, be super happy and savor it, take that victory in, because that means you took a step forward.
Yes.
And each step forward is immeasurably valuable. So take that time. The profile picture I have right here took a long time, but when we were running issue number 3, I posted a black and white panel from that, doing my promotional stuff, which is Jack with his pipe flipping his head around. And Frank Martin of Marvel Comics, who did Venom, he's doing Wolverine, he did East of West with Jonathan Hickman, a bunch of stuff. He saw that panel and colored it just because he liked what we were doing. Little things like that. Liam Sharp, he runs crowdfunding campaigns. He's stepping harder and harder into creator owned. I'm super excited for Starhenge. Check that out. He's a British kind of heavy metal style artist, very painterly. He did a very acclaimed run with Grant Morrison on Green Lantern recently. He was willing to share our work during the hardcover Kickstarter, which was very sweet. It's these small things where you connect with their work, you take the time to support it in small ways. Me, I'm just boosting, cool stuff I like. But
Mm-hmm.
if you do that enough, you do it with enough grace and kindness, you good people tend to recognize
Mm-hmm.
that and again reciprocate if they can and they enjoy what you're doing.
Look at the fan art you're
And those
getting.
are yeah, we have a whole section on IronVerseComics.com. It's got about like 150 pieces in there. If anybody wants to check
Mm-hmm.
it out, it's free to order. I add every piece up there and links and all of that.
I
I
do too. Like
want to make sure
I
that
print out
people,
all the fan art I get because
yeah,
it's like the fact that someone was
yeah,
willing to take like even just a few seconds like of their
yeah,
lifespan and like dedicate that to like me and what I do and
yes,
my work. Like it's like the most intoxicating feeling that I've ever had. So I completely like every time I see like you get fan art, I'm like, yes, that's one more person. Like that's one more person that's on this
yes.
team. I love it.
That was a massive thing that allowed our success was the fan art. That was
Mm-hmm.
something about Jack's design and the idea behind the character did exactly what I wanted it to. It resonated with people at a certain level, and seeing artists take their time, throw their own spin on it, right? That's always
Mm-hmm.
great to see, and then just share it with the world, and then I'm able to share that wonderful sentiment again. And it's just that's again, those small victories are just incredible, and those are what'll keep you going almost more than the
Mm-hmm.
big victories.
Well, you have to have smaller steps. I mean, if you're only focused on like where you're going, you're going to miss everything that's present with you right now. And being able to, well, even Neil Gaiman, he talked about the greatest piece of advice that he never followed, and he spoke about this in a commencement speech that he did at a university. And the advice that he got was from Stephen King himself, and he said, "You're doing well. You should enjoy it." And in this commencement speech, Neil said that he didn't. He didn't take time to enjoy what he was doing. And I think that's why it's not that so many people burn out because they feel unsuccessful or that they don't feel worthy. It's that they get burnt out because they are focusing too much, in my personal humble opinion, they're focusing too much on the long-term goals that they're not meeting, and they're not focusing on, well, what did I get accomplished today? Like today, I can't tell you the stuff that I'm supposed to be working on today for Global Comics, but I'll tell you, I didn't get it all done today. I did not get it all done today. But, that was okay. Like, I had, like, a ton of wins. I got lots of assets done. And I got to, like, interview you. I actually had lunch today. Like, that's a huge win for me because I tend to get so wrapped up in my work, I'll forget to eat. Like, you gotta celebrate the small stuff. Like even my comic, like, I'm gonna have to start over on my pages. I did 21 pages, and I have to start over. Those 21 pages took me 6 months of work.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but like, dude, they're gonna be even better than last time, and like that makes me excited. Like, I learned like what style I want this to be in. I learned about my characters. My characters are being completely revamped. So like, my map is being revamped. I'm learning how to 3D model in Maya so that I can have character models and environment models and be able to draw rooms quicker and environments quicker. Like you can take a loss and you can still turn it around into a win if you're willing to step back and look at, okay, like what success did I have? And if I don't feel like I had any success, well, I'm obviously being too hard on yourself. I feel like you're never ever not going to have a success. There's always something that you can pull out of a negative experience, and that's what I really really love about having done this interview with you today. Is it like every single time like we brought up like a not necessarily like a bad situation or something. It was just something that maybe didn't work out ideally. You were always able to bounce back with something positive to say about it, and that is just so wholesome. I
Oh,
love
thank you.
it.
Yeah, no, even the worst occurrence, which was it struck at my heart pretty hard.
Mhm.
Um, I hit it for about a week. I was down. I
Mhm.
did tainted in my mind everything I had done almost over a decade, right?
Mhm.
Uh, that was bad. But at the end of it, what I learned of it is just how much stronger the work is than just me.
It's so much more than us because honestly, and this kind of depends on like your angle as a creator. If like for most of us, our goal is to share it with other people, whether we make money at it or not. The idea is just to put it out there so that it can be shared. again, whether we make a living off of it or not is up to each person if that's a goal that they have. But I think just the idea that we get to share our experiences with people is why we create. It's why we write. It's why we draw. When I was in band, I played 7 different instruments when I was in high school in multiple different bands, and communicating through sounds, through the tone, the vibrato, the pace, that sort of thing was my first introduction to storytelling. So music was how I learned about storytelling. It wasn't drawing or writing. Yes, yeah, I feel that. So that was sort of my introduction to it. But I definitely agree with you. It's about sharing experiences and stories, whether you're wanting to make a living at it or not. And just because you want to make a living at it doesn't mean you should, or especially if you want to make a living at it, means you have to be super careful and not lose that experience or that thought of like, why did you start in the first place? And like, I hit that depression too, man. Like, I hit mine in June. Well, oh my God, did it hit hard. Like, I had to go take a vacation out to Colorado where I learned about comics and animation when I was getting my animation degree, to like remember, like, why did I even start this in the first place? And the ironic part is now I'm going back to Florida here in a couple weeks, where I met Gary Barker, who's, he's been behind Garfield for like 30 some years. Like, I get to go meet him again. I get to go meet all these teachers. And what's funny is, like, really was such a positive and a negative experience for me, just seeing how artists cope with being artists. Like, how do you cope with being an artist? Do you hide in a corner and do your work by yourself, or do you like talk about it? And it's different for everybody. So I want to do some more of these interviews. I'm definitely going to be inviting you back at some point because this was super fun. I think that's really all I had to talk about and ask. Was there anything that you had wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
No, I think the main things, be open to change, open to connections. Don't close yourself off. Stick with your main, your goal, your dream. If you're passionate about it, it won't fade on you. It'll take lumps, but it'll be a good guiding star. Make sure that you find your path to promotion in a way that you can live with and sustain. And find a way to share it, because that's as you were saying, that's the communication, the expression. That's art in general, in my opinion. Is it's in one way saying I have lived, and if you're gonna be saying that and sharing it with people, then understand that there's gonna be a lot of different ways that people also share that, and so don't take it too personally. Exactly. And just again, if you keep at it, it will become its own reward as you go. And our last point there was savor those small victories, because they're what's gonna sustain you, and make sure you don't lose perception on that. Checking out that guiding star. Don't miss the little warm campfires along the way.
Yeah. Stay connected, make friends, treat people as you want to be treated. I mean, it's really just a simple concept, and you would think that most people would know how to treat other people well, but you would be kind of surprised, looking at media today. But yeah, no. So thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to give all of us some more insight and some more information. I mean, heck, even I learned a lot of new things today about thinking about, because like I said, I'm hoping to do my own crowdfunding someday. And so I hope everyone had, if you guys have any questions, like, please feel free to leave any questions or comments below. I'll definitely be sure that Jack, goodness gracious, I'll be sure that Cody, I'll be sure that Cody gets to see them. So it'll be really cool. So what we'll do is we'll have this video, we'll have everything down below so that everyone can read. So be sure you guys check out the full article below, along with all of the wonderful images that Cody has decided to share with us about all of his projects going on, all of the links below throughout the article. I want to be sure everyone gets to see everything that Cody is doing, especially his social media. Please go check him out. Follow him, give him some love. That's, after all, what we're here for. So if there is nothing else to say, I hope everyone will have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you again, Cody, so much for being here, and I cannot wait to have you back with us.
Gotcha. Well, if folks do, and you find you have the time, please check out IronVerseComics.com. All our links are there. Free reads are there. Links to Global Comics are there. And we hope you'll join us in our little galactic Armageddon.
Thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you again to Cody from IronVerse for being our guest today. Be sure to check out the article, full link below, as well as all of the links to social media and all of his website, and then of course all of the wonderful assets and images that we have shared below. So I will see you guys next time, and have a wonderful night. Thank you.